The restaurant fell silent as Daniel's hand closed around the stranger's wrist, his boss's attacker. One wrong move, and he'd lose everything: his job, his daughter's future, the fragile stability he'd built alone. But Sophia Laurent's terrified eyes told him some things mattered more than safety. In that frozen moment, a single father making $12 an hour stood between Chicago's most powerful CEO and the man who wouldn't let her leave. What happened next would shatter both their carefully constructed worlds. This is their story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The fluorescent lights of Morrison and Hale's executive floor hummed with the kind of silence that only money could buy. Daniel Brooks pushed his janitorial cart past glass-walled offices, each one a monument to success he'd never touch. His reflection caught in the polished marble. 32 years old, wearing a uniform 2 sizes too big because the company only stocked extremes. He'd stopped caring about that months ago. "Papa, when are you coming home?" Emma's voice crackled through his phone, tinny and small. Daniel glanced at his watch, 9:47 p.m. He'd promised her 8:30. "Soon, sweetheart. Mrs. Chen's there, right?" "Yeah, but she falls asleep during the movie and snores." Despite everything, Daniel smiled. "Put her on, okay? I'll tell her to stay awake." The line rustled. Somewhere below, probably the 40th floor, a door slammed. Voices carried, angry, sharp. Daniel moved his cart toward the elevator, phone tucked against his shoulder. "Mr. Brooks?" Mrs. Chen's accented voice came through. "Emma is fine. Don't rush. Traffic is bad tonight anyway." "I appreciate you, Mrs. Chen. Really." "You are a good father. Your wife would be proud." The words landed like they always did, half comfort, half knife. Daniel ended the call and pressed the elevator button. Sarah had been gone 3 years. Some days it felt like yesterday. Some days he could barely remember her voice. Both versions hurt. The elevator descended in silence. 47th floor, 39th, 22nd. Each number a countdown to freedom. To Emma. To the tiny apartment in Pilsen where nothing was clean and everything was theirs. 11th floor, the doors opened. Sophia Laurent stood there, and for a second, Daniel forgot how to breathe. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because her charcoal suit probably cost more than his car, though it did. But because her eyes, crystal blue, the kind that appeared in corporate headshots looking confident and untouchable, were red. She'd been crying. "I'm sorry," Daniel said automatically, stepping aside. "I'll take the next one." "No." Her voice came out harder than intended. She softened it. "No, it's fine. Come in." The elevator resumed its descent. Daniel tried to disappear into the corner, but the space was too small. Her perfume filled it, something subtle and expensive that reminded him of department stores Sarah used to drag him through. "Long night?" The words escaped before he could stop them. Sophia looked at him properly for the first time. Recognition flickered. "You work on 47. "Yes, ma'am. Custodial." "Don't call me ma'am." She said it without meanness. "Makes me feel ancient." "Sorry, Ms. Laurent." A ghost of a smile. "Better." "And yes, long night." She paused, then surprised them both by continuing. "Do you ever feel like you're playing a role? Like you put on a costume every morning and everyone believes it except you?" Daniel thought about his daughter asking when mommy was coming home. About telling her heaven was real when he wasn't sure he believed it himself. About smiling at parents during school drop-off who had no idea he worked 3 jobs to afford the district. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know exactly what you mean." The elevator reached the lobby. Sophia stepped out, hesitated, then turned back. "What's your name?" "Daniel. Daniel Brooks." "Well, Daniel Brooks." She straightened her shoulders, and just like that, the CEO returned. The woman who'd been crying vanished behind professionalism. "Have a good night." He watched her walk toward the parking garage, heels clicking against marble. Then he pushed his cart toward the service exit and forgot about the encounter entirely. That was Tuesday. By Thursday, he'd worked 53 hours and slept maybe 20. Emma's school had called about a field trip, $75 he didn't have. The car needed an oil change. Mrs. Chen needed payment. The numbers in his head never stopped calculating, never balanced. "You look tired, brother," Marcus said, passing him coffee in the break room. Marcus had worked custodial for 11 years and had the kind of calm that came from accepting things wouldn't change. I'm always tired. Nah, this is different. This is that bone tired. When's the last time you took a day off? Daniel couldn't remember. He sipped the coffee, gas station quality, but hot. Can't afford to. Can't afford not to either. Emma needs you alive, not just present. The words sat heavy because they were true, but truth didn't pay bills. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Sophia Laurent. I need to speak with you. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., my office. It's not disciplinary. Daniel read it twice, then 3 times. Something wrong? Marcus asked. The CEO just texted me. Marcus set down his sandwich. The CEO has your number? Apparently. What'd you do? Nothing. We rode an elevator, talked for 30 seconds. Brother, billionaires don't text janitors about 30-second conversations. Marcus leaned forward. You sure you didn't see something you weren't supposed to? The thought hadn't occurred to Daniel. Suddenly his stomach hurt. Friday crawled. He cleaned offices, emptied trash, tried not to think about 6 o'clock. Maybe he was getting fired. Maybe she'd realized he'd seen her crying and considered it a security risk. Maybe... Mr. Brooks? Sophia's assistant stood in the break room doorway, looking uncomfortable in her expensive blouse. Ms. Laurent is ready for you. The executive floor felt different when you were summoned. Daniel followed the assistant through glass corridors, past boardrooms where people made decisions that affected thousands. His reflection kept appearing in windows, a ghost among giants. Sophia's office occupied the corner, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's skyline. The sunset painted everything gold and red, turning the city into something almost beautiful. Close the door, Sophia said without looking up from her laptop. Daniel obeyed. His hands found his pockets, then left them, then returned. Nowhere felt right. Sit. He sat. She finished typing, closed the laptop with deliberate care, then finally looked at him. The woman from the elevator was gone. This version wore armor. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay? Tuesday night, did you tell anyone we spoke? No. Did you mention that I seemed upset? No, ma'am, Ms. Laurent. Why not? The question surprised him. Why would I? It's not my business. Sophia studied him like he was an equation that didn't add up. Most people in this building would sell that information to the highest bidder. Office politics are a blood sport here. I'm not most people. No. She stood, moved to the window. You're not. Silence stretched. Below, traffic moved in rivers of red and white light. Daniel wondered if Emma had finished her homework. I have a situation, Sophia said finally. It's personal, it's complicated, and it requires someone I can trust to be discreet. I'm a janitor, Miss Laurent. I don't know what help I could... You're also a single father working 3 jobs who's never been late, never called in sick, and never once complained about being assigned the worst shifts. She turned to face him. HR pulled your file. I know you're supporting your daughter alone. I know you're drowning financially. I know you're exactly the kind of person who understands the value of loyalty. Daniel's chest tightened. What do you want? Tomorrow night, I have a dinner. A business dinner. That's actually a date I didn't agree to but can't refuse without causing problems with a major investor. I need... She paused, choosing words carefully. I need someone to run interference if things get uncomfortable. You want me to be your backup. I want you to be present, nearby, ready to create an exit if I need one. Why me? Because you saw me cry and didn't weaponize it. Because you asked if I was okay without wanting something in return. Because in a building full of people who would kill for my attention, you're the only one who treated me like a human being. Daniel thought about $75 for Emma's field trip, about the oil change, about Mrs. Chen. How much? $500 for the evening, cash. His mouth went dry. $500. That was groceries for a month. That was the field trip and the oil change and Mrs. Chen's payment with enough left over for Emma's birthday present. What's the catch? Sophia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The catch is you'll meet some very unpleasant people and have to pretend they're tolerable. Think you can manage? Daniel thought about every PTA meeting, every condescending teacher, every landlord who'd looked at him like poverty was contagious. "Yeah," he said, "I can manage." Saturday arrived with the kind of cold that made Chicago feel personal. Daniel stood in his bathroom, wearing a suit Sarah had bought him for her sister's wedding. It fit differently now, looser in some places, tighter in others. He looked like someone playing dress-up. Emma appeared in the doorway, holding her stuffed rabbit. "You look fancy, Papa." "I have to work tonight, sweetheart." "In a suit?" "Special job." She considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. "Are you going to meet a princess?" Despite his nerves, Daniel laughed. "No princesses, just boring adults talking about boring things." "Can I come?" "Not this time, but Mrs. Chen is bringing those cookies you like." Emma's face brightened. The small victories mattered most. The restaurant was called Vertigo, and it lived up to its name, 63rd floor, glass walls, the kind of place where ordering water felt like a test. Daniel arrived at 7:45, 15 minutes early like Sophia had instructed. She'd reserved a table near the back, secluded but visible. His job was simple: sit at the bar, order something cheap, and watch. The bartender gave him a look that said he didn't belong. Daniel ordered coffee and tried to disappear. Sophia arrived at 8 precisely, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than his rent. But something was off. Her smile was too bright, her laugh too quick. Daniel recognized the performance. He wore the same mask at parent-teacher conferences. The man with her was everything Daniel expected and worse. 50-something, silver hair, suit that screamed money and power. Gregory something. Sophia had mentioned the name. He touched her lower back possessively while pulling out her chair. Daniel's hands tightened around his coffee cup. The dinner progressed normally at first. Conversation, wine, the kind of small talk rich people probably found fascinating. But Daniel watched Sophia's shoulders grow tense, watched her smile become fixed, watched her lean away every time Gregory leaned in. 40 minutes in, Gregory ordered his third scotch. 50 minutes in, he touched her hand and didn't let go. 60 minutes in, Sophia tried to stand and Gregory's grip tightened. Daniel was off his bar stool before conscious thought caught up. "Miss Laurent." His voice carried across the restaurant. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Emma's babysitter called. There's a situation." Sophia's eyes met his. Equal parts relief and something else. Gratitude, maybe. Gregory didn't release her hand. "Who the hell is this?" "My assistant," Sophia said smoothly, standing despite his grip. "I apologize, Gregory, but if it's about my goddaughter—" "Your goddaughter?" Gregory's face darkened. "You didn't mention—" "I didn't mention a lot of things." Sophia's voice cooled 20 degrees. "Because this was supposed to be a business dinner, not an interrogation." "I just thought—" "You thought wrong." She finally pulled her hand free. "Thank you for dinner. Daniel, let's go." Daniel moved aside to let her pass, then made the mistake of looking back. Gregory was standing now, anger replacing whatever charm he'd been wearing. "You walk out that door, Sophia, and the Meridian deal is dead." She stopped, turned. The entire restaurant had gone quiet. "Then it's dead," she said, "because I don't do business with men who don't understand the word no." Gregory's face went red. "You're making a huge mistake." "Probably, but it's mine to make." Daniel expected her to storm out, to play the powerful CEO, leaving a bad situation with her head high. Instead, he saw her hands shake as she pushed open the restaurant door, saw her breath come too fast in the elevator. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "No." The word came out sharp, then softer. "No, I'm not." The elevator descended in silence. Daniel wanted to say something comforting, something wise, but everything that came to mind sounded stupid. So he just stood there, present, while Sophia Laurent, billionaire, CEO, most powerful woman in Chicago business, tried not to fall apart. They reached the parking garage. Sophia leaned against her car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably drove itself. "I'm sorry," Daniel said finally. "For what?" "For whatever made you think you had to go to dinner with someone like that?" Sophia laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "You know what the worst part is? I knew. I knew exactly what kind of man Gregory was. But the Meridian deal is worth $400 million, and my board expects me to be professional, to smile through dinner, to pretend it's all fine. She looked at him. Do you know how exhausting that is? Daniel thought about telling Emma that mommy was in heaven, about pretending poverty was a choice, about smiling through people's pity. Yeah, he said. I do. $500. Sophia pulled an envelope from her purse. As promised. Daniel took it, felt the weight of possibility. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You kept your word. That's rarer than you think. She unlocked her car, paused with the door open. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you. Not for the money part, for the other thing. What other thing? Treating me like I was worth protecting. Before he could respond, she was gone, taillights disappearing into Chicago's maze of streets. Daniel stood in the parking garage, holding $500 and feeling like something had shifted in his chest. Something small but significant, like the first crack in a dam. Sunday morning arrived with Emma jumping on his bed, shouting about pancakes. Daniel made them, slightly burned, too much syrup, and watched his daughter's joy over something so simple. This was what mattered. This small kitchen, this loud child, this moment of peace before the world demanded more. His phone buzzed. Sophia. Thank you again for last night. I meant what I said. He stared at the message, unsure how to respond. What did you say to a billionaire who thanked you for basic decency? Just glad I could help. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Would you be willing to do it again? Not the dinner part, just having someone I can trust nearby. I have events, meetings, places where I could use backup. Daniel thought about his bank account, about Emma's field trip, about the perpetual weight of almost enough. How often? Once, maybe twice a week. Same rate. All you'd have to do is be present. That was $1,000 a week. $4,000 a month. Enough to quit his weekend job. Enough to see Emma's school play instead of just hearing about it later. Enough to breathe. Okay. Thank you, Daniel. I'll send details. Emma appeared in the doorway, syrup on her chin. Papa, who are you texting? Work stuff, sweetheart. Boring. Very boring. She climbed into his lap, rabbit tucked under one arm. Mrs. Chen says I can't go to the aquarium because it costs too much. Daniel's chest tightened. Mrs. Chen shouldn't have told you that. Is she wrong? 7 years old and already learning that money mattered more than wonder. Daniel held her closer. No, baby, she's not wrong. It's okay, Papa. We can watch videos instead. That was the worst part. She'd already learned to shrink her dreams to fit their budget. Hey, Em? Yeah? What if I told you things might get a little easier soon? She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes. Because of your fancy job? Something like that. Will you still have time to read to me? Always. She smiled and went back to her pancakes, satisfied. Daniel watched her eat and made a promise to himself into Sarah's memory. Whatever this thing with Sophia was, he'd protect what mattered, his daughter, their small life, the fragile peace they'd built. Everything else was just details. The first official event was a museum fundraiser on Tuesday. Daniel wore his wedding suit again and felt like an imposter among people who owned multiple tuxedos. Sophia had arranged for him to have a security badge. Officially, he was part of her detail. Unofficially, he was her escape route. Just stay visible, she'd told him during their brief planning call. If I signal, if I touch my left earring, create a distraction. Spill something, fake a phone call, whatever works. The museum was all marble and hushed voices, the kind of place where even breathing felt too loud. Daniel positioned himself near the catering table, trying to look professional while surrounded by Chicago's elite. Sophia worked the room like she was born to it. Smile, handshake, laugh at jokes that probably weren't funny. He watched her navigate conversations, saw the way men interrupted her, the way they touched her arm without permission, the way they treated brilliance like decoration. 2 hours in, a gray-haired man cornered her near a Monet. Daniel couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw Sophia's hand drift to her earring. He moved. Miss Laurent, I'm sorry. He held up his phone like it had buzzed. Your goddaughter's school called. Something about a fever? The lie came smooth, too smooth, but Sophia seized it. Oh no, excuse me, Richard. I have to... Can it wait? Richard had the kind of face that expected compliance. We're discussing the merger. A 7-year-old with a fever can't wait, actually. Sophia's voice could have frozen champagne. Daniel, let's go. They left Richard sputtering among the impressionists. Outside, Sophia breathed like she'd been underwater. He wanted me to have drinks at his hotel to discuss the merger properly. She laughed bitterly. Because apparently my office isn't proper enough. You okay? I'm furious, but yes. She looked at him. This is what it's like, Daniel. Every single event, every meeting, every dinner, men who think power means access. Why do you go? Because if I don't, they call me difficult, emotional, a bitch, and suddenly my company faces questions about leadership. She pulled out her phone, typed something sharp and fast. But I'm done with Richard. He can take his merger and… She stopped herself. Sorry, you don't need to hear this. I don't mind. Something in his voice made her pause. Why not? Because someone should hear it. Someone should know what it costs. Sophia studied him in the streetlight. You're different than I expected. How so? Most men hear about this and either don't believe it or think I'm exaggerating. You just listen. Maybe that's because I know what it's like to be underestimated. She smiled. A real one this time. The single-father janitor and the billionaire CEO. Quite the pair. Quite the disaster, more like. Probably. But she was still smiling. That became their pattern. Tuesday nights, Thursday afternoons, occasional weekends, galas, fundraisers, investor meetings, corporate dinners. Daniel learned to read her signals. The earring touch meant rescue. The shoulder roll meant bored but manageable. The tight smile meant someone had crossed a line. He also learned things about Sophia Laurent that never made Forbes. She took her coffee with too much sugar and drank it cold because she forgot to finish cups. She had a tell when lying. Her left eye twitched slightly. She hummed off-key while working. She'd grown up poor in Detroit and still couldn't shake the habit of checking price tags. You know what I miss most? She said one night, post-disaster charity auction. They'd retreated to a 24-hour diner, her in a $5,000 dress, him in his wedding suit. Gas station coffee, the really terrible kind that tastes like burned regret. Daniel laughed. You can buy that any time. No, I can't. Because now I'm supposed to prefer artisanal single-origin beans hand-picked by virgins in the Andes or whatever. The coffee I actually like isn't sophisticated enough for who I'm supposed to be. That's stupid. Most of my life is stupid. She poked at pie she'd ordered but wouldn't eat. Do you know how many friends I have? Real friends, not people who want something. How many? 0. I have 0 friends, Daniel. I have employees, board members, investors, rivals, and sycophants, but nobody I can just be with. The loneliness in her voice was so familiar it hurt. I get that, he said quietly. Do you? You have Emma, you have Mrs. Chen, you have that life outside of work. I have a 7-year-old who's learning that dreams cost too much, and a neighbor who watches her out of pity, and a life that's just survival with extra steps. Daniel met her eyes. Different circumstances, same cage. Sophia set down her fork. I'm sorry, I didn't mean… I know, and you're right. I do have Emma. She's everything. But you asked about friends, and the truth is, I don't have those either. Parents at school think I'm broken. Coworkers think I'm overworked. Everyone sees the struggling single dad, not the person underneath. What are you underneath? The question surprised him. Nobody had asked that since Sarah died. I don't know anymore, he admitted. Maybe that's the worst part. I've spent 3 years being Emma's dad and the guy who cleans offices and the widower who's holding it together. I don't remember who Daniel is when he's just Daniel. I'd like to meet him sometime, Sophia said. Just Daniel, I mean. Why? Because I think he'd be interesting, more interesting than the version who pretends everything's fine. They sat in comfortable silence while the diner hummed around them. Somewhere, someone dropped a plate. Outside, Chicago moved through its night. Indifferent, infinite, impossible. Can I ask you something? Daniel said. Sure. Why me? Really? You could hire professional security, handlers, people trained for this. Sophia considered the question. Because those people see a job. You see a person. And right now I need someone who remembers I'm a person more than I need someone who's good at their job. I'm good at my job. You're excellent at your job. But that's not why I trust you. Why do you trust me? She smiled. Because you haven't asked me for anything except what we agreed on. Because you showed up for a stranger who was crying in an elevator. Because your daughter draws pictures of you fighting dragons, and that kind of kid doesn't come from a bad person. How do you know about Emma's drawings? You left one in your cart last week. I saw it while walking to a meeting. She pulled out her phone, showed him a photo she'd taken. Sure enough, there was Emma's crayon masterpiece, Daniel in armor, fighting a cartoonish monster. That's the student loan dragon, Daniel explained. She thinks debt is an actual creature I battle at night. She's not wrong. They laughed, and for a moment the diner felt like the only place in the world. No titles, no roles, no expectations. Just two people who'd accidentally found honesty in the last place they'd expected it. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 6. The money helped. Daniel paid off the worst debts, bought Emma winter clothes that fit, took her to the aquarium on a Saturday that felt like winning the lottery. But something else was happening, something he didn't have words for yet. He thought about Sophia between events, wondered if she'd eaten lunch, if her board meeting went well, if Richard was still being a creep about the merger. Small thoughts that felt dangerous. Marcus noticed first. You're different, he said during their Thursday break. Different how? Lighter, less like you're carrying the world. What changed? Daniel couldn't explain the arrangement without it sounding crazy. Got some extra work. Eases the pressure. That's not it. Marcus studied him with 11 years of wisdom. You got a reason to smile again. That's different than just having money. It's not what you think. Brother, I'm not thinking anything. I'm just saying, whatever it is, don't let it complicate your life more than it needs to. But it was already complicated, because Sophia texted him about things beyond events, asked his opinion on business deals he barely understood, sent Emma books she thought a 7-year-old would enjoy, called him at midnight when insomnia made her lonely. Tell me something real, she said during one of those calls. Something that has nothing to do with work or money or any of this. Daniel, half asleep on his couch, Emma snoring in the next room, thought about it. Emma asked me today if heaven has school. What'd you tell her? That her mom is too smart for school now. That heaven is just knowing things without having to learn them. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe about heaven, but I believe Sarah would want Emma to feel okay about it. Silence on the line. Then, you're a good father, Daniel. I'm a tired father who makes everything up as he goes. That's what good parenting is. They talked until 2 a.m. about nothing and everything. Emma's upcoming school play, Sophia's terrible relationship with her own mother, the way Chicago looked from different windows, the small moments that made life bearable. When they finally hung up, Daniel lay in the dark and admitted what he'd been avoiding. This wasn't just a job anymore. Somewhere between museum fundraisers and midnight phone calls, Sophia had become important, not as his employer, as something else, something that scared him, because caring about people meant they could leave. And Daniel had already survived that particular devastation once. He wasn't sure he could do it again. The moment everything changed happened on a Thursday that started normal. Event at the Drake Hotel, some tech conference Sophia was keynoting. Daniel positioned himself in his usual spot, visible but peripheral, close enough to intervene, far enough to disappear. Sophia's speech was brilliant. She spoke about innovation and disruption and the future of enterprise software, and Daniel understood maybe 10%. But he understood the way the audience leaned forward, the way they believed her. Afterward, the networking vultures descended. Daniel watched her navigate them with practiced grace until he saw her touch her earring. He moved through the crowd, phone already raised. Miss Laurent, I'm so sorry. A hand caught his arm, hard. I know who you are. The man was young, 20-something, with the kind of anger that came from privilege denied. You're the one who cost my father the Meridian deal. Gregory's son. Of course. I don't know what you're talking about, Daniel said evenly. Bullshit. You interrupted their dinner, humiliated him. Made him look like what he is? Daniel kept his voice low. Someone who doesn't take no for an answer? The kid's face went red. People were starting to notice. Sophia was pushing through the crowd. My father is a respected... Your father is a predator in an expensive suit, Daniel said. And if you grab my arm again, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. Is there a problem here? Sophia's voice cut through the tension like ice. No problem, the kid said, releasing Daniel. Just introducing myself to your assistant. The way he said assistant made it an insult. Then consider yourself introduced, Sophia said. Now, if you'll excuse us. My father was right about you, the kid interrupted. You're a cold bitch who thinks she's better than everyone. The room went silent. Daniel stepped forward without thinking. You need to leave. Now. Or what? He never finished. Hotel security appeared, real security, the kind with earpieces and consequences. They escorted Gregory's son out while he shouted threats about lawsuits and reputation. Sophia touched Daniel's arm gently. Are you okay? His heart was hammering. Adrenaline made everything sharp-edged. I should be asking you that. I'm used to it. You're not. Maybe I should be. She studied him, something shifting in her expression. Come on, let's get out of here. They ended up in her car, parked on Lakeshore Drive, watching waves crash against the rocks. Neither spoke for a long time. I'm sorry, Sophia said finally. For what? For dragging you into this. Into my mess. You didn't sign up for Gregory's son threatening you. I signed up to have your back. That includes dealing with entitled kids. Still, it's not fair to you. Daniel watched the lake, dark and endless. You know what's not fair? That you have to deal with men like Gregory in the first place. That you can't have a business dinner without wondering if it's actually a business dinner. That you've built something incredible and people still reduce you to whether you're pleasant enough. That's just how it is. Doesn't mean it should be. Sophia turned to look at him. Why do you care so much? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to name. Because, Daniel said carefully, you deserve better than what you're getting, and someone should say that out loud. Even if saying it costs you? Even then. Sophia's hand found his on the center console. Not romantic, just connection. Acknowledgement. Thank you, Daniel, for everything. For showing up, for seeing me, for, her voice caught, for being real in a world that's mostly performance. You're real too, he said. You just hide it better. They sat there, hands touching, watching Lake Michigan pretend to be an ocean. And Daniel felt that crack in the dam widen just a little more. The following Monday brought rain that turned Chicago gray and mean. Daniel stood at Emma's school, watching other parents arrive in cars that didn't leak, carrying umbrellas that weren't held together with duct tape. He'd forgotten his jacket at home, and water soaked through his shirt while he waited for dismissal. Mr. Brooks? Emma's teacher, Miss Patterson, appeared under a golf umbrella big enough for 3 people. Can we talk for a minute? His stomach dropped. Teachers who wanted to talk never brought good news. Sure. They moved under the awning while kids poured out around them. Miss Patterson had the kind smile of someone about to deliver bad news gently. Emma's doing well academically, she started, which meant the problem wasn't grades. But I've noticed she's been withdrawn lately, quiet during group activities. She used to participate more. Daniel thought about the aquarium trip Emma had mentioned, the field trip she'd stopped asking about, the way she'd learned to make herself smaller. Is she having trouble with other kids? Not exactly, but there's a divide. The class is planning a winter party. Families are expected to contribute, decorations, food, activities. Emma hasn't turned in her form. Because the form required money they didn't have. Because every school event came with a price tag Daniel couldn't always meet. I'll take care of it, he said. Ms. Patterson's expression softened into pity, which was somehow worse than judgment. Mr. Brooks, if there are financial concerns, the school has resources. We're fine. The words came out harder than intended. I'll handle it. Emma bounded over, backpack dragging, oblivious to the conversation. Papa, can we get hot chocolate? Not today, sweetheart. But it's raining, and you said, I said not today. Her face fell. Daniel felt like the worst person alive. The drive home was quiet except for the rhythmic squeak of failing windshield wipers. Emma stared out the window, drawing patterns in the condensation. Daniel's phone sat in the cup holder, silent. No texts from Sophia today. They had an event Wednesday, but otherwise the week stretched empty. That was good, he told himself. Normal. He didn't need the extra income to become a dependency. Didn't need Sophia Laurent to become something he counted on. His phone buzzed. Are you free tomorrow? Not for an event, just, I could use the company. S. Daniel stared at the message while sitting at a red light. Rain drummed on the roof. Emma hummed something off-key in the back seat. What time? Whenever works, I'll come to you. That stopped him. Sophia had never offered to come to his neighborhood. Their arrangement existed in her world. Expensive restaurants, fancy hotels, places where Daniel was always slightly out of place. The idea of her in Pilsen, seeing his cramped apartment and leaking ceiling, made something in his chest tighten. You don't have to do that. I want to. Unless it makes you uncomfortable. Did it? Daniel looked at Emma in the rearview mirror, still drawing on glass. Looked at his neighborhood rolling past, check-cashing stores and laundromats, chain-link fences and corner stores with bulletproof glass. This was his life, unfiltered. No performance, no pretending things were better than they were. 6 p.m., okay? After I get Emma settled. Perfect. Send me your address. He did, then immediately regretted it. Spent the drive home cataloging everything wrong with his apartment. The water stain on the ceiling, the cabinet door that wouldn't close, the couch he'd found on Craigslist that sagged in the middle, all the small failures made visible. Papa, you're doing the thinking face, Emma said as they climbed the stairs to their third-floor walk-up. What thinking face? The one where your forehead gets wrinkly and you look worried. 7 years old and already reading him too well. Just work stuff, Em. Mrs. Chen was leaving her apartment as they arrived, arms full of grocery bags. Daniel took them without asking, carried them inside while Emma chattered about her day. The old woman's apartment smelled like ginger and something medicinal. You're a good boy, Daniel, Mrs. Chen said, patting his arm. Your wife picked well. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Who's coming to visit tomorrow? He shouldn't have been surprised she'd overheard. The walls were thin enough to share lives. A friend from work. The fancy lady you've been helping? She's not... He stopped. How do you know about that? I listen. Also, you smile at your phone now. You didn't used to do that. Daniel felt his face heat. It's not like that. I didn't say it was like anything. I just said you smile. She settled into her worn armchair. Be careful, Daniel. Rich people live in different worlds. They can visit ours, but they don't stay. The words followed him back to his apartment. Emma wanted mac and cheese for dinner, the kind from a box that cost 99 cents. While it cooked, Daniel looked around with Sophia's eyes. Saw the cracks in the plaster, the mismatched furniture, the entire life that screamed struggle. He could cancel. Send a polite text about something coming up. Keep the boundaries clear, the arrangement professional. His phone buzzed. Looking forward to tomorrow. Emma's welcome to join, obviously. S. Daniel stared at the message, at those two words, looking forward. Like visiting his shabby apartment in a rough neighborhood was something to anticipate rather than endure. She'd like that. Fair warning, the place is small. Small is fine. See you at 6. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway. Is the fancy lady coming here? Her name is Sophia, and yes. Why? Good question. Daniel had been wondering the same thing. Because we're friends. Like me and Zoe? Something like that. Emma considered this seriously. Does she like mac and cheese? I don't know, sweetheart. We should ask. Everyone should like mac and cheese. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel cleaned. Not the usual picking up, but the desperate kind of cleaning that tried to hide poverty behind effort. He scrubbed the bathroom until his hands smelled like bleach. Organized the living room so the furniture's shabbiness looked intentional. Fixed the cabinet door with a screwdriver and prayers. At midnight, exhausted and still unsatisfied, he sat on the sagging couch and admitted what Mrs. Chen had already seen. He cared what Sophia thought. Cared too much. And that caring felt like standing at the edge of something dangerous. Tuesday crawled, work passed in a blur of trash bags and floor polish. Marcus asked if he was feeling okay, and Daniel lied convincingly. By 5:30, he was home, changed into jeans that weren't work clothes, trying to tame Emma's hair while she complained about brushing. Why do I have to look nice? She demanded. Because we have company. I look nice already. You have peanut butter in your hair. That's from lunch. The doorbell rang at exactly 6. Daniel's heart kicked against his ribs. Sophia stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than his couch, but looked normal enough. Her hair was down, no makeup, and she was holding a bag from a bakery Daniel recognized from the nice part of town. "Hi," she said, suddenly looking uncertain. "I brought cookies. I didn't know if that was weird." "It's not weird." Daniel stepped aside. "Come in." She entered like someone walking into a museum, careful and observant. Her eyes took in everything: the small space, the worn furniture, the crayoned artwork covering one wall like Emma's personal gallery. "Your home is lovely," Sophia said, and Daniel couldn't tell if she meant it or was being polite. "It's small." "Small isn't bad. It's cozy." Emma appeared from her room, suddenly shy. She'd changed into her favorite dress without being asked, the purple one with butterflies. "Hi," Emma said quietly. "I'm Emma." Sophia crouched down to her level. "Hi, Emma, I'm Sophia. Your dad talks about you all the time." "He talks about you too." Daniel wanted the floor to open up. "Does he?" Sophia glanced at him, amused. "He says you're really smart and have an important job, and sometimes people are mean to you, but you're strong anyway." Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. Daniel cleared his throat. "Em, why don't you show Sophia your drawings?" Emma brightened and grabbed Sophia's hand, pulling her toward the crayon gallery. Daniel followed, watching Sophia examine each picture with genuine attention. "This one's Papa fighting the debt dragon," Emma explained. "And this one's me and Papa at the aquarium. We went last month and I saw an octopus. And this one's Mama in heaven with lots of stars because Papa says she's watching over us." Sophia's expression softened. "Your Mama sounds special." "She was. I don't remember her much, but Papa tells me stories." "What's your favorite story?" Emma thought about it. "The one where Mama tried to make cookies and burned them so bad the smoke alarm went off and Papa had to open all the windows in winter." Sophia laughed. "That's a good story." They settled in the living room, Emma between them on the couch. Sophia opened the bakery bag, chocolate chip cookies still warm. Emma's eyes went wide. "These are from Laurent's," Emma said, recognizing the logo. "The fancy place." "You've been there?" Sophia asked. "We walk past it sometimes. Papa says maybe for my birthday." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He'd said that 2 years ago and still hadn't managed it. "Well," Sophia said, "now you don't have to wait. Eat as many as you want." Emma needed no further encouragement. She devoured 2 cookies while explaining her current obsession, a book series about dragons who ran a bakery. Sophia listened like it was the most fascinating thing she'd heard all day. "Do you have kids?" Emma asked suddenly. "Emma," Daniel warned. "What? I'm just asking." "No," Sophia said gently. "I don't have children." "Do you want some?" "Emma." "It's okay," Sophia said. She considered the question seriously. "I think I'd like to, someday, if I can figure out how to balance it with work." "Papa balances work and me," Emma said proudly. "He's really good at it, even though he's tired a lot." "I can tell." Sophia met Daniel's eyes. "He seems like an excellent father." Emma yawned, sugar crash imminent. Daniel recognized the signs. "Bedtime, sweetheart." "But Sophia just got here." "Sophia will still be here when you wake up." He paused. "Right?" "If that's okay," Sophia said. Emma negotiated for 15 more minutes, which became 20, which became half an hour. Finally, Daniel carried her to bed while she protested sleepily. He read 2 chapters of the Dragon Bakery book, and by the end her eyes were closed. When he returned to the living room, Sophia was examining the photos on his bookshelf. Mostly Emma, a few of Sarah, one of their wedding day when they were young and stupid and thought love could solve everything. "She was beautiful," Sophia said quietly. "Yeah, she was." "How long were you married?" 5 years. "We were together since college." Daniel sat down, suddenly exhausted. "She got sick when Emma was 3. Ovarian cancer. By the time they caught it, there wasn't much they could do." "I'm sorry." "Me too." He rubbed his face. "The worst part wasn't losing her, though that was bad enough. It was watching Emma forget. She was so young. Now Sarah's just stories and photographs." Sophia sat beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Different than usual, something softer. "You keep her alive through those stories," she said. "That matters." "Does it?" "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing Emma a disservice, making her miss someone she barely knew." You're teaching her that love doesn't end, that people matter even after they're gone. That's not a disservice, Daniel. That's a gift. They sat in silence. Outside, someone's car alarm went off, then stopped. The building settled with creaks and groans. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "Sure. Why are you really here? And don't say because you needed company. You could get company anywhere." Sophia drew her knees up, looking younger than her 30 years. "Honestly? Because I'm tired of performing. Every room I walk into, I have to be Sophia Laurent, CEO. I have to be smart and confident and unshakable. But here with you and Emma, I can just be Sophia, regular person who likes cookies and dragon stories." "You're not a regular person. Neither are you. But we're both pretending to be, and that's exhausting." She looked at him. "Do you ever just want to stop? Stop trying to be strong. Stop making it work. Stop carrying everything alone. Every single day. What stops you?" Daniel thought about Emma's butterfly dress and burnt cookies and crayon dragons. Her. She needs me to keep going, so I do. Even when I don't want to. Even when it feels impossible. That's what makes you a good father. Or a stubborn one. Sophia smiled. "Can't it be both?" They talked until midnight about nothing important. Sophia's terrible college roommate who stole her clothes. Daniel's brief career as a failed musician. The weird things Emma said that made no sense, but somehow did. Easy conversation, the kind Daniel hadn't had since Sarah died. "I should go," Sophia said eventually, though she didn't move. "Probably. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Board meeting at 7, then back-to-back calls until 6. Sounds terrible. It is. She finally stood, gathering her things. "Thank you for tonight, for letting me be normal for a few hours." Daniel walked her to the door. In the narrow hallway, they stood closer than professional distance allowed. "You're welcome here any time," he heard himself say. "If you need normal." "Careful. I might take you up on that." "I'm counting on it." Something shifted in her expression. For a moment, Daniel thought she might kiss him. For a moment, he wanted her to. But instead, she squeezed his hand and left, heels echoing down the stairwell. Daniel locked the door and leaned against it, heart racing like he'd run a marathon. Mrs. Chen was right. This was dangerous. But knowing something was dangerous had never stopped him before. The next morning, Emma asked when Sophia was visiting again before she'd even finished breakfast. "I don't know, sweetheart. I like her. She's nice." "She is nice." "Do you like her?" Daniel poured more cereal to avoid answering. "Eat your breakfast." "You do like her. You get the same face Papa used to get when Grandma showed me videos of Mama." "What face?" "The soft face. Like you're thinking about something that makes you happy and sad at the same time. 7 years old and seeing too much." Daniel kissed her head. "Finish eating. We're going to be late." Work passed in a haze. Marcus kept giving him looks but didn't comment. Around 3, Daniel's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "This is Gregory Thompson. We need to talk about your relationship with Sophia Laurent." Ice flooded Daniel's veins. He stepped into the bathroom, away from curious ears. "I don't have a relationship with Ms. Laurent. I work for her occasionally. That's not what my sources say. They say you're quite close. Personal, even. Your sources are wrong." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Meet me for coffee tomorrow. 10 a.m., Millennium Park Cafe. Come alone, or this conversation becomes very public." Daniel's hands shook. He wanted to ignore it, block the number, pretend it hadn't happened. But Gregory Thompson had resources, connections, the kind of power that could destroy lives for sport. Fine. Smart choice. Daniel stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. 3 months ago, his biggest worry was making rent. Now he was getting threatening texts from billionaire investors. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't terrifying. He didn't tell Sophia. Couldn't figure out how to explain that their arrangement had attracted the wrong kind of attention. Instead, he showed up Wednesday for their scheduled event. Another fundraiser, another room full of predators in expensive suits, and tried to act normal. Sophia noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked during a quiet moment. "Nothing." "Daniel." "I said nothing." She studied him with those 2 sharp eyes. "You're a terrible liar." "I'm fine, just tired." "Bullshit. You've been tired since I met you. This is different." She touched his arm. Talk to me. Not here. Then later. My place, after this circus. Daniel wanted to refuse, wanted to keep the distance that might protect them both, but her concern was genuine, and he was so tired of carrying things alone. Okay, the fundraiser dragged on forever. Daniel went through the motions, watching, waiting, creating exits when Sophia's earring signal came. But his mind was elsewhere, calculating risks and consequences. Afterward, Sophia's driver took them to her penthouse in the Gold Coast. Daniel had never been there before. The elevator required a key card and opened directly into her apartment, 3,000 square feet of glass and steel and art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. Drink? Sophia offered, heading to a bar that looked like a sculpture. No, thanks. She poured herself whiskey, then changed her mind and set it down. Tell me what's going on. Daniel pulled out his phone, showed her Gregory's messages, watched her face go from confused to angry to something harder. That son of a... She cut herself off. He's threatening you. He wants to meet, tomorrow. Absolutely not. I already agreed. Then unagree. Daniel, Gregory Thompson is dangerous. He doesn't make threats unless he's prepared to follow through. Which is why I need to hear what he wants. Maybe I can... Can what? Negotiate? Reason with him? He's not reasonable. He's a predator who's used to getting his way, and you getting between him and what he wants made you a target. Daniel walked to the window. Chicago sprawled below, infinite lights marking infinite lives. This is my fault. How is this your fault? I overstepped. I'm your employee, not your bodyguard, not your friend. I should have stayed in my lane. Sophia crossed the room in 3 strides. Look at me. He did. You are my friend, she said fiercely. Maybe the only real one I have. And you didn't overstep. You did exactly what I asked you to do. If Gregory has a problem with that, he can take it up with me. He will. That's what tomorrow's about. He's going to tell me to disappear, threaten to ruin me if I don't, and probably offer money to make it easier. You don't know that. I know men like him. I grew up around them. Different tax bracket, same playbook. Sophia's jaw tightened. I'll go with you. That'll make it worse. I don't care. I do. Daniel met her eyes. Let me handle this, please. They stood toe to toe, stubborn meeting stubborn. Finally, Sophia exhaled. Fine, but I'm 1 call away. And if he threatens you, if he so much as implies anything illegal, you walk out. Deal. She pulled out her phone, typed something fast. I'm texting you the number for my lawyer, corporate attorney, but she knows people. If this goes sideways, it won't. Daniel, I'll be careful. I promise. They stood in the 2-big apartment, surrounded by wealth that felt more like isolation than achievement. Sophia looked exhausted suddenly, like the armor had finally gotten too heavy. Stay, she said quietly. Please. I don't want to be alone tonight. Every rational part of Daniel's brain screamed that staying was a mistake, that crossing this line would complicate everything, that Mrs. Chen was right about rich people visiting but never staying. Okay, he said anyway. They ended up on her couch, leather that probably cost more than his car, watching terrible reality TV and eating takeout from containers. Sophia fell asleep halfway through episode 3, her head on his shoulder, breathing even and peaceful. Daniel stayed still, afraid to wake her. Looked around at this life she'd built, successful, powerful, lonely, and understood why she'd shown up at his cramped apartment wanting normal, why she'd listened to Emma's dragon stories like they mattered, why she kept him around despite the risks. They were both drowning in different ways, both pretending to be fine when they were anything but, both desperate for someone who saw past the performance. His phone buzzed. Marcus. You good, brother? Yeah, just working late. At 2 a.m.? Long story. They always are. Be careful. Daniel looked at Sophia sleeping, vulnerable in a way she never let herself be while awake. Thought about tomorrow's meeting with Gregory, about the impossible situation they'd stumbled into. I'm trying, he whispered to Marcus's text, to the universe, to himself. But careful had never been his strength. Sophia woke at 5 a.m., still on the couch, Daniel's jacket draped over her like a blanket. He was gone. A note sat on the coffee table in handwriting that leaned left. Didn't want to wake you. Thanks for last night. She held the note longer than necessary, then folded it carefully and tucked it in her phone case like a bookmark. Outside, Chicago was waking up, delivery trucks and early commuters, the city's machinery grinding to life. Sophia made coffee she wouldn't finish and tried not to think about Daniel walking into Gregory Thompson's trap alone. At her office by 6:30, she canceled her morning meetings, rescheduled calls, told her assistant she was unavailable until further notice. Then she sat at her desk, phone in hand, waiting. Daniel stood outside Millennium Park Cafe at 9:45, 15 minutes early, because showing up late felt like losing before it started. October wind cut through his jacket, and he regretted not wearing something warmer, something that didn't make him look like exactly what he was. A man scrambling to hold on to dignity while outmatched. Gregory Thompson arrived at 10:02, late enough to establish dominance, but not so late it seemed petty. He wore a camel overcoat that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent, and carried himself like someone who'd never been told no in any meaningful way. "Mr. Brooks." He didn't offer his hand. "Shall we?" Inside, the cafe smelled like espresso and money. Gregory ordered something complicated. Daniel asked for black coffee and felt judged for it. They sat by the window. Gregory crossed his legs, supremely comfortable. Daniel kept his feet flat on the ground, ready to move. "I appreciate you coming," Gregory started, voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "I imagine Sophia advised against it." "She doesn't control my decisions." "Doesn't she?" Gregory smiled. "Let's not pretend this arrangement is anything other than what it is. She pays you to be available, to run interference, to play the role of white knight when situations become uncomfortable." Daniel sipped his coffee. It burned his tongue. "If you already know everything, why am I here?" "Because I want to understand your angle." "My angle? What you're hoping to gain? Money? Access? A chance to climb out of your tax bracket by attaching yourself to someone successful?" Gregory leaned forward. "I've seen this play before, Mr. Brooks. Struggling single father, dead wife, adorable daughter. It's a compelling story. I can see why Sophia fell for it." Heat flooded Daniel's face. "You don't know anything about me. I know you clean offices for minimum wage. I know your wife died uninsured, leaving you with medical debt that'll take decades to clear. I know your daughter attends a school you can barely afford, in a neighborhood you'd leave tomorrow if you could." Gregory's smile didn't waver. "I know everything about you, Daniel. The question is, what do you know about her?" "Enough. Do you know she has a pattern? She collects strays. People she thinks need saving. Her last assistant was a former addict she met at a charity event. Before that, an intern from a disadvantaged background. She gives them opportunities, builds them up, makes them dependent on her generosity." He paused. "Then she gets bored and moves on. Ask yourself, when she's done playing savior, where does that leave you?" Daniel's jaw ached from clenching. "Is there a point to this?" "The point is, I'm offering you an exit before it gets messy. $50,000, cash, tax-free. Walk away now, quietly, and you can clear your debt. Set up a college fund for Emma. Move to a better neighborhood. All you have to do is disappear from Sophia's life." The number hung in the air between them. $50,000. Daniel could see it. Emma's tuition paid, the apartment deposit in a safe building, breathing room for the first time in 3 years. All he had to do was abandon someone who'd treated him with more genuine kindness than anyone since Sarah died. "No." Gregory's eyebrow raised. "No? Just like that?" "Just like that." "You're making a mistake." "Probably. I make a lot of those." Gregory's pleasantness evaporated. "Then let me be clear. Sophia Laurent is vital to several deals I have in motion. Your presence complicates those arrangements. If you continue interfering, I will make your life very difficult. Your job, your custody arrangement, your daughter's school placement, all of it can disappear with a few phone calls." Daniel stood. His hands shook, but his voice came out steady. "You threaten my daughter again, and this conversation becomes a different kind of problem." "Sit down, Mr. Brooks. We're done here." "I said sit down." Daniel walked out. Behind him, Gregory's voice followed. "You'll regret this. I promise you that." Outside, Daniel's legs felt watery. He made it half a block before stopping, leaning against a building, breathing like he'd sprinted. His phone buzzed immediately. Sophia. "How did it go?" "He offered me 50 grand to disappear." Silence, then quietly. What did you say? I said no. Daniel, he threatened Emma, threatened her school, my custody, everything. I told him we were done and walked out. Daniel laughed, but it sounded wrong. So now I've got a billionaire who wants to destroy my life, and I'm standing on Michigan Avenue shaking like an idiot. How's your morning? Where are you? Millennium Park. Why? Stay there. I'm coming. You don't have to. The line went dead. Daniel pocketed his phone and tried to look like he belonged on this street corner among people in business suits rushing to jobs that mattered. A homeless woman asked for change. He gave her the $5 in his wallet because Gregory Thompson's $50,000 had made his own money feel dirty. Sophia's car pulled up 12 minutes later. She'd driven herself, which seemed significant somehow. The passenger window rolled down. Get in. Daniel obeyed. The car smelled like leather and her perfume. She pulled into traffic without speaking, jaw tight, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Where are we going? Daniel asked. I don't know. Away. They drove in silence, out of downtown through neighborhoods that got progressively rougher until Chicago started to thin out. Sophia finally pulled over in a grocery store parking lot in a suburb Daniel didn't recognize. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For dragging you into this. For making you a target. For being so desperate for someone genuine that I didn't think about the consequences. I chose this. You didn't force me. I should have protected you better. Daniel turned to face her. Stop. Gregory's a bully with money. He doesn't get to decide what I do or who I spend time with. He can make things very hard for you. Things are already hard. At least this way I'm choosing what I'm fighting for. Sophia's eyes were red but dry. Why did you say no? $50,000 would have changed your life. It would have been the wrong change. That's not an answer. Daniel looked out the window at the grocery store. A mother was loading groceries while two kids fought over a shopping cart. Normal people doing normal things, unbothered by billionaires and threats and impossible situations. You asked me once why I cared so much, he said. About you, about what happens to you. The truth is, I don't know when it stopped being just a job. Maybe that night at the restaurant. Maybe when you showed up at my apartment and ate cookies with Emma. Maybe earlier in that elevator when you asked if I ever felt like I was playing a role. He finally looked at her. But somewhere along the way, you became important, and I don't abandon people who matter to me, no matter what they're offering. Sophia's composure cracked. A tear escaped, then another. She wiped them angrily. I don't know how to do this, she said. Do what? This. Whatever this is. I don't have friends, Daniel, not real ones. I have employees and rivals and people who want something. I don't know how to be close to someone without it being transactional. You're doing fine. I'm a mess. We're both messes. At least we're honest about it. She laughed through tears. Some pair we make. Could be worse. How? We could be boring. That got a real laugh. Sophia pulled herself together, makeup smudged but eyes clearer. What do we do now? She asked. About Gregory? About everything. Daniel thought about it. About Emma and Mrs. Chen's warning and the complicated web they'd woven. About consequences and courage and the fact that doing the right thing usually costs something. We keep going, he said. We don't let him win by scaring us apart. We're careful, we're smart, but we don't hide. He'll come after you. Let him try. Daniel, I mean it. I've survived worse than Gregory Thompson, medical bankruptcy, losing my wife, 3 years of 18-hour days trying to keep my daughter fed and safe. He's got money and connections, but I've got something he doesn't. What's that? Nothing left to lose that matters more than this. Sophia reached across the console and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, gripped tight. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For being stubborn. For saying no. For choosing me when you didn't have to. They sat in the parking lot holding hands while strangers shopped for groceries and the world spun on, indifferent to the small revolution happening inside a Mercedes in suburban Illinois. The fallout started that afternoon. Daniel's phone rang while he was at work. Unknown number. He didn't answer. It called again. And again. By the fourth call, he picked up. Mr. Brooks, this is Janet Martinez from Child Protective Services. We've received a complaint regarding your daughter's living situation and need to schedule a home visit. Daniel's blood went cold. A complaint from who? I'm not at liberty to say, but there are concerns about adequate supervision, appropriate housing conditions, and your ability to provide stable care while working multiple jobs. My daughter's fine. She's safe. She's fed. She's happy. I'm sure she is. This is just protocol. We need to verify the complaint has no merit. Are you available tomorrow at 3? No. He was working tomorrow at 3. But saying that would prove their point about inadequate supervision. I'll make it work, he said. Excellent. I'll see you then. The line went dead. Daniel stood in Morrison and Hale's bathroom, staring at his reflection, feeling the walls close in. Gregory had made his move, fast, vicious, aimed at the one thing Daniel couldn't protect while fighting back. He called Sophia. CPS just contacted me. Home visit tomorrow. Someone filed a complaint about Emma's living conditions. Sophia swore. Gregory? Probably. What do I do? Let me make some calls. I know people who... No. Daniel cut her off. No connections, no favors. That'll make it look like I can't handle this myself. I just need to prove Emma's safe and taken care of. Your apartment. I know what my apartment looks like, but it's clean. It's safe. And Emma's thriving despite everything. They'll see that. What if they don't? Daniel didn't have an answer. The thought of losing Emma, of her being taken because some billionaire wanted revenge, made his chest feel like it was caving in. They will, he said, trying to believe it. They have to. That night, Daniel cleaned his apartment again. Not the cosmetic kind, the deep, panicked kind that tried to prove something to invisible judges. He fixed the wobbly table leg, organized Emma's books by height, made sure the smoke detector batteries worked, checked expiration dates on everything in the fridge. Emma watched from the couch, confused. Papa, why are you acting weird? I'm not acting weird. You're cleaning things that are already clean. That's weird. He sat beside her, pulled her close. She smelled like the strawberry shampoo they bought at the dollar store. Someone's coming to visit tomorrow, he said carefully. A lady from an office who makes sure kids are okay. She's going to ask you some questions. Emma stiffened. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. Not at all. She just wants to make sure you're happy and safe. I am happy and safe. I know. Just tell her that, okay? Tell her the truth about everything. What if she asks about Mama? Daniel's throat tightened. Tell her whatever you want. There's no wrong answer. Emma thought about this seriously. Is she going to take me away? The question hit like a physical blow. No, Em, that's not what this is. Zoe at school said sometimes ladies from offices take kids away if their parents can't take care of them right. Zoe's 7. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But could she? Daniel held Emma's face in his hands, looked her in the eyes. I will never let anyone take you away from me. Never. Do you understand? She nodded, still worried. Daniel read her 3 extra chapters of the Dragon Book and stayed until she fell asleep, watching her breathe in the dim light from the hallway. If Gregory Thompson thought threatening his daughter would make him back down, the man had fundamentally misunderstood what Daniel was willing to do to protect her. Mrs. Chen knocked on his door at 11. She was holding a container of soup. I heard the phone calls, she said. Walls are thin. Daniel took the soup. I don't know what to do. You keep being a good father. That's all you can do. She patted his arm. Tomorrow, I will stay nearby. If you need me to speak to them, I will. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Your wife would be proud of you, Daniel, not because you're perfect, but because you keep trying. After she left, Daniel sat in his small kitchen, eating soup he couldn't taste, trying not to imagine scenarios where this went wrong, where Emma ended up in foster care while he fought to prove his fitness as a parent, where Gregory Thompson won by destroying the only thing that mattered. His phone buzzed. Sophia. How are you holding up? Not great. Want company? He did. Desperately. But Emma was asleep down the hall, and having Sophia here tonight felt complicated in ways he couldn't explain. Rain check? Of course. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. I know. He didn't sleep, just lay in bed listening to the building's sounds, pipes groaning, neighbors arguing, traffic humming. At 4 a.m., Emma crawled into bed with him, rabbit clutched tight. Can't sleep, she mumbled. Me neither. Are you scared about tomorrow? Lying to her had never worked. A little. Me too. They lay in the dark, holding on to each other like life rafts. Daniel thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made at her funeral, about being enough for both of them, for giving Emma the life she deserved despite the odds stacked against them. Papa? Emma's voice was small in the darkness. Yeah, sweetheart? Even if we're poor, we're still a family, right? We're always a family. Money doesn't change that. Okay. She snuggled closer. I love you. I love you too, Em. More than anything. Morning came too fast. Daniel got Emma ready for school, made breakfast neither of them ate, tried to act normal while his heart hammered against his ribs. Mrs. Chen appeared at 7:30 to walk Emma to the bus stop, giving Daniel a significant look that said she'd be listening. The apartment felt empty without Emma's chatter. Daniel cleaned again, rearranged furniture, tried to see the space through CPS eyes. It was small but clean, cramped but organized, poor but safe. That had to be enough. Janet Martinez arrived at exactly 3 o'clock. She was younger than Daniel expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a clipboard that looked official and terrifying. Mr. Brooks, thank you for making time. Of course. She walked through the apartment methodically, checking smoke detectors, looking in cabinets, examining the water heater. Took notes Daniel couldn't see, asked questions he tried to answer without sounding defensive. How many hours a week do you work? Around 50, sometimes more. And Emma's supervision during that time? Mrs. Chen next door. She's retired, watches her while I'm working. Emma's never alone. The complaint mentioned multiple jobs. 3. Custodial at Morrison and Hale, weekends at a grocery store, occasional evening work. He didn't mention Sophia. Didn't want to explain something he barely understood himself. Janet wrote something. That's a lot of hours. Do you feel you have adequate time with your daughter? I make time. Every morning, every evening. Weekends when I'm not working. We read together, go to the park, talk about her day. She's the most important thing in my life. I'm sure she is. Janet's voice was neutral, impossible to read. May I see her room? Daniel led her to Emma's small bedroom. Walls covered in crayon art, bed neatly made, stuffed animals arranged by size. The room of a loved child, even if the furniture came from thrift stores. Janet examined everything. The window locks, the outlet covers, the closet organization. Picked up a framed photo of Sarah. Emma's mother? Yes. She passed 3 years ago. I'm sorry, that must be difficult. We manage. More notes. More questions. How was Emma doing in school? Was she eating properly? Did she have friends? Regular doctor visits? Daniel answered everything honestly, feeling judged with each response. Finally, Janet set down her clipboard. Mr. Brooks, I'll be frank with you. Your apartment is small and shows signs of financial stress. But it's clean, safe, and clearly maintained with care. I see no evidence of neglect or unsafe conditions. Relief flooded through him. So, we're okay? I'll need to interview Emma and Mrs. Chen to complete the assessment, but based on what I've seen here, I anticipate closing this case as unfounded. She looked at him directly. However, I'm concerned about your work schedule. 50-plus hours while raising a young daughter alone is unsustainable. Have you considered applying for assistance programs, childcare subsidies, food support? Pride warred with practicality. I make enough to cover our needs. Barely, and that's not sustainable long term. You're burning out, Mr. Brooks. I can see it. Emma needs you healthy and present, not exhausted and stretched thin. I'm doing my best. I know, but sometimes our best needs help. She pulled out a card. This is a family resource coordinator. She can connect you with programs you might qualify for. It's not charity. It's using the systems designed for exactly your situation. Daniel took the card, knew he wouldn't call. Thank you. I'll be in touch after I speak with Emma and your neighbor. But Mr. Brooks, whoever filed this complaint, and I have my suspicions about the motivation, they did you no favors. Use this as a wake-up call. Make changes before the system forces them on you. After she left, Daniel sat on his couch and shook. Not from fear anymore, but from anger so intense it felt like poison. Gregory had weaponized poverty against him, had used Emma as leverage in a game Daniel didn't know he was playing. His phone rang. Sophia. How did it go? She's closing it as unfounded. We're okay. Thank God. But she made it clear I'm barely holding on, that I'm one crisis away from everything falling apart. Daniel's voice cracked. He went after my daughter, Sophia, used her to hurt me, and the worst part is he's right. I am barely holding on. I am one emergency away from disaster. Come over, please. Let you what? Fix it? Throw money at the problem? That's what Gregory thinks this is about, that I'm using you for access to a better life. And you're not? The question hung heavy. Daniel thought about the extra income that had bought Emma's field trip, about the breathing room that came from Sophia's arrangement, about how easy it would be to lean into her wealth as a solution. I don't know anymore, he admitted. I don't know where the line is between accepting help and being dependent. I don't know if I'm here because I care about you or because you're the first good thing that's happened to me since Sarah died and I'm terrified of losing it. Silence. Then softly, what if it's both? What if we're both using each other for connection and that's okay? Is it okay? I don't know, but I know I don't want to stop. Daniel closed his eyes. Neither do I. Then don't. Come over. Let's figure this out together. I have to pick up Emma from school. Bring her. We'll order pizza, watch movies, be aggressively normal. Despite everything, Daniel smiled. She'd like that. So would I. He hung up and allowed himself 30 seconds of falling apart. 30 seconds to cry from stress and anger and the sheer exhaustion of fighting battles he couldn't win with weapons he didn't have. Then he pulled himself together because Emma would be home soon and she didn't need to see him broken. Mrs. Chen knocked as he was leaving. The lady talked to me, she said. I told her you're the best father I've seen, that Emma is lucky and whoever complained is jealous of what you built. Thank you. Go to your friend. Take Emma. Let someone else hold you up for once. She squeezed his hand. Strong people need help too, Daniel. It doesn't make you weak. Daniel drove to Emma's school with Mrs. Chen's words echoing, picked up his daughter, who chattered about her day. Math was hard, lunch was gross. Zoe got in trouble for talking. Normal 7-year-old concerns, blissfully unaware of how close they'd come to losing everything. We're going to Sophia's tonight, Daniel said. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? She invited us for pizza and movies. Best day ever. At Sophia's building, the doorman looked at Daniel's beat-up Honda like it had personally offended him. But Sophia had called ahead and they were waved through to the private elevator with the keycard access and the quiet that money bought. Emma's reaction to the penthouse was everything Daniel had worried about. Papa? She whispered, eyes huge. This is like a castle. Sophia appeared from the kitchen wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking more human than CEO. Not quite a castle, just a lot of unnecessary space. It's so big. Can I explore? Go ahead. Just don't touch anything that looks expensive. Emma took off, Rabbit trailing behind her. Daniel watched her disappear into rooms he hadn't seen. Thank you, he said to Sophia, for this. For pizza. For pretending we're normal. For not making this weird. Who says I'm pretending? She moved closer. Maybe this is the most normal I've felt in years. They ordered too much pizza from a place Emma had never heard of. Watched animated movies on a TV bigger than Daniel's entire living room wall. Emma fell asleep between them halfway through the second film, drooling slightly on Sophia's expensive couch. She's out, Sophia whispered. She does that. Goes from full speed to unconscious in 30 seconds. They carefully extracted themselves without waking her. Daniel covered Emma with a blanket while Sophia dimmed the lights. In the kitchen, away from sleeping children, reality settled back in. We need to talk about Gregory, Sophia said. I know. He's escalating. CPS was just the opening move. What's next? My board. He has allies there. People who will question my judgment if they think I'm involved with an employee. Are you? Involved, I mean. Sophia met his eyes. I don't know what this is, Daniel, but it's not nothing. No, it's not nothing. Which means Gregory will use it. He'll paint you as someone taking advantage, me as compromised, and Emma as collateral damage. He'll make us toxic to each other. So we give him what he wants? Stay apart to avoid the mess? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Sophia leaned against the counter, backlit by under-cabinet lighting that cost more than Daniel wanted to know. I'm saying we need to be smart. Document everything. Keep things professional in public. Protect Emma above all else. That sounds like hiding. It's strategy. It's letting him win. It's surviving long enough to actually win. She softened. Daniel, I've been playing this game my whole career. You can't just charge in and expect righteousness to triumph. You have to be patient, calculating, willing to look like you're losing while you position for the real victory. And what's the real victory here? Gregory losing his leverage, which means we need to make him irrelevant. I'm already working on finding alternative investors for the Meridian deal. Once I don't need him, his threats become empty. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. Daniel thought about months of looking over his shoulder, months of wondering when the next attack would come, months of teaching Emma to be careful around the wrong questions. I hate this, he said. Me too. Emma called out from the living room, disoriented from waking up in a strange place. They both went to her, Daniel kneeling beside the couch. Just fell asleep, sweetheart. You're at Sophia's, remember? Emma nodded groggily. Can we stay here? It's nice. Sophia glanced at Daniel, a question in her eyes. We should go home, Daniel said gently. You have school tomorrow. But I like it here. I know, but home is home. They gathered their things, Emma's backpack, Daniel's jacket, the leftover pizza Sophia insisted they take. In the elevator down, Emma leaned against Daniel's leg, still half asleep. Papa? She mumbled. Yeah? Are you and Sophia going to get married? Daniel nearly choked. What? No, why would you ask that? Because you look at her the way you used to look at Mama in the videos, like she makes you happy. Out of the mouths of children. Daniel had no idea what to say. Things are complicated, Em. Adults always say that when they don't want to explain. She wasn't wrong. The drive home was quiet, except for Emma's soft snoring in the back seat. Daniel's mind spun through everything. Gregory's threats, the CPS visit, Sophia's strategy, Emma's question. The complications multiplying faster than solutions. His phone buzzed at a stoplight. Marcus, you working tomorrow? Yeah, why? Need to talk. Something's up. What kind of something? The kind that waits until we're face to face. Daniel's stomach dropped. Because good news never required privacy, and Marcus's tone suggested this was anything but good. Marcus was waiting in the break room when Daniel arrived the next morning, coffee already cold in front of him. The usual easy smile was gone, replaced by something that looked like concern mixed with reluctance. What's going on? Daniel asked, skipping pleasantries. Marcus glanced at the door, then lowered his voice. HR pulled me in yesterday, started asking questions about you. What kind of questions? Your schedule. Whether you've been taking extra breaks. If I've noticed you spending time with anyone from the executive floor. Marcus rubbed his face. They were fishing, brother, trying to make it sound casual, but it wasn't casual. Daniel's chest tightened. What did you tell them? That you're the hardest working person here and they should mind their own business. Marcus leaned forward. But Daniel, they're building a case. I don't know for what exactly, but someone's putting pressure on them to find something wrong with your employment. Gregory. Who? Long story, rich guy with a grudge. Marcus whistled low. You've got a billionaire coming after your job? What did you do? Key his Bentley? Worse. I protected someone he thinks belongs to him. Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. The fancy lady, Miss Laurent. Daniel didn't confirm or deny. Brother, Marcus said carefully, I'm not judging, but whatever's happening between you two, it's making waves. The kind that drown people like us while people like them just get their shoes wet. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're risking everything. Your job, your stability, Emma's security, for someone who lives in a completely different world. And when this blows up, and it will blow up, she'll land on her feet. You won't. The words stung because they echoed every fear Daniel had been trying to ignore. She's not like that, he said, but even to his own ears it sounded defensive. Maybe not, but the system is. Rich people don't face consequences the same way we do. They have lawyers and connections and golden parachutes. What do you have? Daniel thought about his beat-up car and cramped apartment and bank account that never quite balanced. Nothing, he admitted. I have nothing except Emma and the scraps I've managed to hold together. Then protect that. Whatever this thing is with Ms. Laurent, it's not worth losing your daughter over. Marcus left for his shift, and Daniel stood alone in the break room, feeling like the walls were closing in. His phone buzzed. Sophia. Good morning. Sleep okay? He stared at the message, Marcus's warnings ringing in his ears. The smart thing would be to create distance, to text back something professional and cold, to protect what little he had before Gregory's campaign destroyed everything. Instead, he typed, Not really. Can we talk later? Of course. Lunch? I'll come to you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then, looking forward to it. Daniel pocketed his phone and went to work, trying not to think about how many ways this could fall apart. The morning dragged. Daniel cleaned offices on autopilot while his mind spun through scenarios. HR would call him in, present whatever fabricated evidence Gregory had planted, and fire him for policy violations he didn't commit. Or worse, they'd find something real, some technicality he'd broken without knowing, and use it to justify what they'd already decided. Either way, the outcome was the same. He'd lose his income, his insurance, his foothold in a life that was already too precarious. At noon, he drove to Morrison and Hale's executive floor, a journey that used to feel neutral and now felt loaded with meaning. Sophia's assistant waved him through with a knowing look that made Daniel's skin crawl. How many people had already noticed? How many were reporting back to whoever cared? Sophia was on a call when he entered, gesturing for him to sit. Daniel waited, studying her office with new eyes. The awards on the wall, the degrees from schools he could never afford, the photo of her shaking hands with a senator, evidence of a life so far removed from his that the distance felt unbridgeable. She ended the call and smiled, but it faded when she saw his expression. What happened? Daniel told her about Marcus, about HR, about the walls closing in. Sophia listened without interrupting, her face growing more tense with each detail. They're trying to manufacture cause for termination, she said when he finished. Gregory's putting pressure on the board, and the board is putting pressure on HR to handle it quietly. Can they? Fire me for nothing. At-will employment means they can fire you for almost anything. The question is whether they're stupid enough to make it obvious retaliation. Sophia pulled out her phone, typed something sharp and fast. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Don't. She looked up, surprised. What? Don't make this a battle. That's what Gregory wants, you going to war over me, proving his point that I'm a liability. So I just let him destroy your livelihood? You let me handle it my way. Daniel leaned forward. If you fight this publicly, it confirms everything he's been saying, that I'm using you, that you're compromised, that we're both problems that need solving. But if I quit, absolutely not. If I quit, he continued, it removes his leverage. There's nothing to investigate, nothing to fire me for. I just walk away clean. And lose your income, your insurance, your daughter's stability, which I'll rebuild somewhere else. But at least Emma won't be dragged through whatever ugliness is coming. Sophia stood, moved to the window overlooking Chicago. The city sprawled below, indifferent to their small crisis. This isn't fair, she said quietly. Life rarely is. I can help, financially, until you find something else. That would prove Gregory right. I don't care what Gregory thinks, but I do. Daniel joined her at the window. Because he's right about one thing. There's a power imbalance here. You can afford to not care what people think. I can't. Everything I do reflects on Emma, on her future, on whether people see her as the daughter of someone worth respecting or someone who took shortcuts. Accepting help isn't taking shortcuts. In my world, it is. In my world, if you can't make it on your own, you're weak. You're failing. And I've had enough people look at me with pity to last a lifetime. Sophia turned to face him. Is that what you think I feel? Pity? I don't know what you feel. That's part of the problem. The words hung between them, naked and honest. Sophia's jaw worked like she was chewing on a response and couldn't find the right one. I feel, she said finally, like I found someone real in a world full of performers. Someone who sees me as Sophia instead of a title or an opportunity. Someone who makes me laugh and calls me out when I'm being ridiculous and doesn't want anything from me except honesty. She paused. And I feel terrified that Gregory's going to destroy that because I didn't protect you well enough. You can't protect me from this. That's not how it works. Then what do? Let me fight my own battles. Trust that I'm strong enough to handle it. And if you're not? Daniel smiled without humor. Then I'll fail on my own terms instead of someone else's. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He let it go to voicemail, but the message notification came through immediately. He listened on speaker. Mr. Brooks? This is Ellen Chen from Human Resources at Morrison & Hale. We need you to come to my office this afternoon at 2 o'clock to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention. Please confirm receipt of this message. Sophia's expression hardened. Don't go. I have to. Daniel, if I don't show, they'll say I was avoiding accountability. At least this way I hear what they're accusing me of. Then I'm coming with you. That'll make it worse. I don't care. You're not walking into an ambush alone. They stared at each other. Stubborn meeting stubborn. Finally, Daniel exhaled. Fine, but you stay quiet unless they cross a line. Deal. At 1:55, they rode the elevator down to HR in tense silence. The office was sterile and impersonal, decorated with corporate motivational posters that rang hollow. Ellen Chen was waiting, mid-50s, with glasses and an expression that gave nothing away. Mr. Brooks, Miss Laurent. She didn't seem surprised to see Sophia. Please sit. They sat. Ellen arranged papers on her desk with deliberate care. Mr. Brooks, we've received reports of concerning behavior that we need to address. Specifically, allegations that you've been using your position to gain inappropriate access to executive staff and have been observed spending extensive time in areas outside your assigned duties. That's ridiculous, Sophia said immediately. Ellen's eyes flicked to her. Miss Laurent, I appreciate your presence, but this is a personnel matter between Mr. Brooks and the company. Mr. Brooks works at my request. Any time he's spent on the executive floor has been at my explicit invitation for legitimate business purposes. What business purposes would require custodial staff to attend executive social events? The trap was obvious. If Sophia explained the arrangement, it sounded inappropriate. If she didn't, the allegation stood unchallenged. Miss Laurent has occasionally needed additional support staff for evening functions, Daniel said carefully. I've been compensated separately for that work, completely independent of my employment here. Compensated by whom? By me, personally. Sophia's voice could have frozen water, which is entirely legal and none of the company's business. Ellen made a note. Nevertheless, it creates an appearance of impropriety. An hourly employee developing a personal relationship with a C-suite executive raises questions about favoritism, abuse of power, and what relationship? Daniel interrupted. I clean offices. Miss Laurent occasionally hires me for extra work. That's it. Is it? Ellen pulled out a photo. Daniel and Sophia leaving her building together late at night. Another of them at the diner. A third of Sophia's car parked outside his apartment. These suggest something beyond a professional arrangement. Daniel's stomach turned. They'd been followed, documented, reduced to evidence in someone else's case. Where did you get those? Sophia demanded. That's not relevant. What's relevant is whether Mr. Brooks has been leveraging his position for personal gain. He hasn't gained anything except harassment from people who can't mind their own business. Ellen's expression didn't change. Mr. Brooks, I'm going to be direct. We're prepared to offer you a severance package, 2 months' pay, if you resign effective immediately. No admission of wrongdoing, no negative marks on your record. You walk away clean. And if I don't, then we proceed with a formal investigation, which will likely result in termination for cause and no severance. The choice is yours. Sophia stood abruptly. This is constructive dismissal. You're forcing him out with manufactured evidence and veiled threats. Your lawyers will find that everything we've done is within company policy, Ellen said calmly. Mr. Brooks is an at-will employee. We don't need cause to end his employment. We're simply offering him a graceful exit. Graceful? Sophia laughed bitterly. You're destroying his livelihood because someone with money told you to. I'm protecting the company from potential liability. By throwing away a good employee who's done nothing wrong. That's not my determination to make. The appearance of impropriety is enough. Daniel put his hand on Sophia's arm, a silent request for her to stop. She looked at him, furious and helpless. Can I have time to think about it? Daniel asked. Until Monday. After that, the offer expires and we move forward with the investigation. Outside the office, Sophia was shaking with rage. That was ambush, a coordinated, calculated hit job. It was business, Daniel said quietly. It was Gregory pulling strings and people jumping. They didn't even pretend to investigate fairly. Why would they? I'm replaceable. You're not. They walked to the parking garage in silence. Sophia's heels echoed too loud in the concrete space. I'll fix this, she said. I'll go to the board, explain that HR is acting on bad information. Don't. Daniel leaned against his car. Marcus was right. You're playing a different game than I am. When this explodes, you'll be fine. Me? I'll be collateral damage. So you're just giving up? I'm being realistic. 2 months severance is more than I'd get otherwise. I can find another job, rebuild somewhere they don't care about my personal life. And us? What happens to us? Daniel looked at her, brilliant, powerful, standing in a parking garage looking lost. I don't know. Maybe there is no us to happen to. Maybe this was always going to end when reality caught up. You don't mean that. Don't I? Look at this, Sophia. Really look. We're from different worlds, and those worlds are colliding in ways that hurt. Emma almost lost her home because of me knowing you. I'm losing my job. Gregory's going to keep escalating until one of us breaks. So we break him first. With what? I don't have your resources. I can't fight a billionaire in court or in boardrooms. I can barely fight to keep the lights on. Sophia stepped closer. Then let me fight for you. And prove Gregory right, that I'm using you, that you're too compromised to lead because you're emotionally involved with the help? Daniel shook his head. No, I won't be the reason people question everything you've built. I don't care what people think. You should. Your company, your employees, your shareholders. They all depend on you being above reproach. I'm a liability you can't afford. Daniel, I'm taking the severance, he said, the words tasting like ash. I'm walking away before this gets worse, before Emma pays an even higher price for my mistakes. Your mistake was helping someone who needed it. That's not something to regret. Maybe not, but the consequences are still real. He got in his car before she could argue further, drove away while she stood in the parking garage looking smaller than someone her size should. In his rearview mirror, she disappeared into shadow, and Daniel felt something in his chest crack open. Emma was at Mrs. Chen's when he got home, doing homework at the kitchen table. Daniel paid the neighbor for watching her, money he'd soon not have, and carried his daughter back to their apartment. Papa, you're sad, Emma said, wrapping her arms around his neck. Just tired, sweetheart. It's the same thing. She wasn't wrong. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with the severance offer in front of him. 2 months' pay. Enough to cover rent and basics while he job hunted. Not enough to survive if something went wrong, if Emma got sick, if the car died, if any of the 1,000 small disasters that plagued poor people decided to strike. His phone sat next to the papers, silent. Sophia hadn't called or texted. Maybe she understood he needed space. Maybe she was already moving on, filing this under problem solved, and returning to her life. The thought hurt more than it should. Mrs. Chen knocked around 10. Daniel let her in, and she took one look at his face and sighed. It happened, she said. Not a question. They offered severance if I quit, investigation if I don't. And you're quitting. I don't have a choice. We always have choices, Daniel. They're just not always good ones. She sat at his table, old hands folded. What about the fancy lady? What about her? Are you walking away from her too? It's complicated. Love usually is. This isn't love. Mrs. Chen gave him a look that said she saw through that lie immediately. Your wife, she was easy love, young love. You grew up together, built a life together. Everything was natural and right. This is different love, complicated love, the kind that asks you to be brave when it would be easier to run. I'm not running, I'm protecting Emma. By teaching her that when things get hard, you give up? By teaching her that some battles aren't worth fighting. And which battles are worth it, Daniel? Only the ones you're sure you can win. That's not courage. That's arithmetic. Daniel rubbed his face. I'm so tired, Mrs. Chen. Tired of fighting, tired of losing, tired of hoping things will get better when they just keep getting harder. I know, I see it. She patted his hand. But that fancy lady, she sees it too, and she chose you anyway. That should mean something. It means she has bad judgment. Or it means she sees something in you worth fighting for, even when you can't see it yourself. After Mrs. Chen left, Daniel stood at Emma's bedroom door, watching her sleep. She'd kicked off her covers again, rabbit clutched tight, dreaming whatever 7-year-olds dreamed about. He thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made at her funeral, about being enough for both of them. But what if enough wasn't about money or stability? What if it was about showing Emma that love, messy, complicated, inconvenient love, was worth the risk? His phone buzzed. Sophia, I know you said you need space, but I can't stop thinking about what you said, about being from different worlds, about not being worth the fight. You're wrong, Daniel, about all of it, and I'm going to prove it to you. He stared at the message, heart hammering. Don't do anything rash. Too late. I already did. Check your email. Daniel opened his email app. There, from Sophia's personal account, was a message titled For Monday. Inside was a detailed document, a timeline of every interaction between Daniel and Sophia. Every event he'd worked, every payment, every text message. All professional, all documented, all completely transparent. Below that, a letter from her to Morrison and Hale's board, explaining the arrangement, accepting full responsibility for any appearance of impropriety, and threatening legal action if they proceeded with termination. At the bottom, a personal note. You said I can't protect you from this. You're right. But I can fight beside you, and I can make sure the truth is on record, consequences be damned. If they want to fire you, they'll have to fire me too. And they won't do that because I'm too valuable, which means you are too. I'm not asking you to let me save you. I'm asking you to let me stand with you. There's a difference. Whatever you decide about us personally, you deserve to keep your job on the merits, not lose it because someone's playing games. S. Daniel read it 3 times, then a 4th. Each time, something in his chest loosened. She wasn't trying to fix his life. She was trying to fix the injustice. And maybe that was a distinction that mattered. He texted back. This could backfire. The board could come after you instead. Let them try. Sophia, I'm tired of playing it safe, Daniel. Tired of letting men like Gregory dictate my choices because I'm afraid of consequences. You stepped into a restaurant to protect me when you had everything to lose. I can do the same for you. That was different. How? He thought about it. About the moment he'd seen Sophia's distress and moved without thinking. About courage being the opposite of calculation. It wasn't, he admitted, exactly. So let me be brave too. Daniel looked at Emma sleeping at his small apartment, at the life he'd built from scraps and stubbornness. Then he looked at the document Sophia had sent, evidence of someone who saw him as worth defending. Okay, he typed. We fight. Together. Together. I'll see you Monday. Daniel set his phone down and exhaled. He had no idea if this would work. No idea if Sophia's intervention would save his job or just transfer the target to her back. No idea if they'd survive whatever Gregory threw at them next. But for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't facing the battle alone. And maybe that was enough. Sunday passed in slow motion. Daniel took Emma to the park, pushed her on swings while she shrieked with joy, bought her ice cream they ate while watching ducks fight over breadcrumbs. Normal things that felt weighted with meaning, like he was storing up memories against future loss. Papa, why do you keep looking at me weird? Emma asked, chocolate ice cream on her nose. I'm not looking at you weird. You are. Like you're trying to remember what I look like. Maybe I just like your face. She giggled. That's mushy. I'm a mushy dad. The mushiest. They sat on a bench while Emma fed the ducks her cone's remains. Daniel's phone buzzed. Marcus. Heard through the grapevine that Ms. Laurent went nuclear with the board. Whatever you two are doing, it's making waves. Good waves or bad waves? Too early to tell. But people are talking. Be ready for Monday. Daniel pocketed the phone. Emma leaned against his arm, sticky and content. Papa? Yes, sweetheart. Are you going to marry Sophia? The question again. Daniel had avoided it last time, but Emma's eyes were too serious to dodge. I don't know, Em. Why do you keep asking? Because she makes you smile, and I think Mama would want you to smile. Daniel's throat tightened. You think so? Yeah, she loved you. That means she'd want you to be happy. Emma tilted her head. Plus, Sophia's nice, and she has a really big TV. Despite everything, Daniel laughed. Those are your criteria? Nice and big TV? And she likes dragon books. That's important. Very important. Emma went back to watching ducks, satisfied with her logic. Daniel sat there thinking about Sarah, about grief that softened into memory, about love that made room for new possibilities without erasing what came before. Maybe Emma was wiser than all of them. That night, Sophia called. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Surprisingly okay. You?" "Terrified, excited, possibly insane for doing this." "Definitely insane, boss." She laughed. "The board meets tomorrow morning at 8. I'll present the documentation, make my case. By 10, we should know if I still have a job. And if you don't? Then I guess we'll both be unemployed together. Very romantic." That's one word for it. Silence settled, comfortable despite the circumstances. "Daniel?" Sophia's voice softened. "Thank you for letting me do this, for trusting me. Thank you for thinking I'm worth it. You are, even if you can't see it yet." They talked until midnight about nothing important. Emma's ice cream mustache, the Ducks' territorial disputes, the way Chicago looked from different windows. Easy conversation that felt like medicine. Monday morning arrived with rain that turned the city gray. Daniel dressed in his best clothes, the wedding suit again, slightly worn but clean. Emma watched from her doorway. "You look handsome, Papa." "Thanks, sweetheart." "Are you scared?" "A little." "Me too." He knelt down to her level. "Why are you scared?" "Because if you lose your job, we might have to move. And I like my school, I like Mrs. Chen, I like our home even if it's small." Daniel pulled her into a hug. "Whatever happens, we'll be okay. I promise." "You can't promise that." She was right. But he said it anyway because sometimes kids needed promises even when you couldn't keep them. At Morrison and Hale, Daniel went straight to his locker, collected his things just in case. Marcus found him there. "Big day, brother." That's one way to put it. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, standing up instead of rolling over. Ask me tonight if I still think so." Marcus gripped his shoulder. "Whatever happens, you've got people rooting for you. Remember that." At 9:45, Daniel's phone buzzed. "Sophia, board meeting just ended. Come to my office. Now." His heart hammered. The message gave nothing away, no indication whether the news was good or bad. The executive floor felt different in daylight. Daniel rode the elevator up, each floor a countdown to verdict. Sophia's assistant waved him through without comment, face carefully neutral. Sophia stood at her window, back to the door. Daniel couldn't read her posture. "Hey," he said quietly. She turned and her face was unreadable for a moment. Then she smiled, small, tired, genuine. "We won." Relief flooded through him. "They're dropping it?" "Better. They're implementing new policies about executive fraternization that apply to everyone equally. No targeting, no selective enforcement. HR has been reprimanded for handling this badly, and Gregory Thompson has been asked to resign from the board effective immediately." "What? How?" Turns out other board members didn't appreciate his attempted coup. When I presented evidence of his harassment, his threats against you and Emma, his attempts to manipulate corporate resources for personal vendettas, well, suddenly people remembered all the other times he'd been problematic. Sophia moved closer. "He's out, Daniel. He can't hurt you anymore." "And your job?" "Secure. The board apologized for letting things get this far. I may have also implied that losing me would cost them more than keeping Gregory, which helped focus their priorities." Daniel sat down, legs suddenly unsteady. "It's really over?" "The Gregory part, yes. The rest." She sat beside him. "That's up to us." They looked at each other, weeks of tension finally draining away. "Emma asked me again if we're getting married," Daniel said. Sophia's eyebrows rose. "What did you tell her?" "That I didn't know. That things were complicated." "And are they?" "Complicated?" "Probably. Different worlds, different lives, all the things that still matter." "But?" Daniel thought about courage being the opposite of calculation, about Emma saying her mother would want him to be happy, about Sophia fighting beside him when she could have walked away. "But maybe complicated is okay," he said. "Maybe it's worth trying anyway." Sophia's smile reached her eyes this time. "Yeah, maybe it is." Outside the window, Chicago sprawled in every direction, millions of lives intersecting and diverging, each one a story of small choices that added up to everything. Daniel thought about the night he'd noticed Sophia in that restaurant, the decision to intervene, the impossible chain of events that followed. Sometimes the smallest choices changed everything. And sometimes, against all odds, they changed things for the better. The weeks that followed Gregory's removal didn't magically fix everything. Daniel learned quickly that winning one battle didn't mean the war was over. It just meant the enemy changed shape. Morrison and Hale's new fraternization policies meant Daniel could keep his job, but they also meant he and Sophia had to be careful. No more private meetings in her office. No more late-night calls on company property. Everything visible, everything documented, everything professional. It felt like being handed freedom with a leash attached. "This is ridiculous," Sophia muttered one afternoon, watching Daniel clean her office while she worked. They were 10 feet apart, might as well have been miles. "We're adults, we won. Why does it still feel like we're hiding?" "Because we are," Daniel said, emptying her trash. "Just in a different way. I hate it." "Me too," but they adapted because they had to. Found moments between the rules, coffee runs that took slightly longer than necessary, conversations in the parking garage where no one paid attention, text messages that said more than company policy would allow spoken words to convey. Emma noticed the change immediately. "Why don't you smile at your phone anymore?" she asked one evening over mac and cheese. "I still smile." "Not the same way. You used to look happy. Now you look worried." Daniel set down his fork, 7 years old and reading him like a book. "Things are complicated with Sophia right now." "Because of work?" "Yeah." "That's dumb. You should just quit and work somewhere else. Then you can see her whenever you want." If only it were that simple. But Emma's logic had a point. The job was keeping them apart more than bringing them together now. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel pulled up his bank account. The severance money had been returned when he kept his job, and with the extra income from Sophia's events, he'd managed to save almost $3,000. Not enough to quit recklessly, but enough to have options. His phone buzzed. "Sophia, miss you. Miss you too. This isn't sustainable." "I know." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Come over tomorrow night, after Emma's asleep. We need to talk." The message felt ominous. Conversations that started with "we need to talk" rarely ended well. But Daniel agreed anyway because avoiding hard conversations had never solved anything. Mrs. Chen was available to watch Emma the next evening, giving Daniel a knowing look that said she saw through his excuse about work stuff. "Be honest with that girl," she said as he left, "and with yourself. Hiding from hard truths doesn't make them disappear." Sophia's building felt different now. The doorman knew his name, waved him through without question. The elevator didn't feel foreign anymore. But familiarity didn't equal comfort. Daniel's stomach churned the entire ride up. Sophia opened the door in jeans and an old sweater, hair down, no makeup. The armor was gone, replaced by someone who looked as uncertain as he felt. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood in her entryway, suddenly awkward after weeks of forced distance. "Wine?" Sophia offered. "Sure." She poured 2 glasses, and they settled on her couch. The same one where Emma had fallen asleep, where they'd eaten pizza and watched movies and pretended life was simple. "I've been thinking," Sophia started, then stopped. Started again. "About us. About what we're doing." Daniel's chest tightened. "Okay. This isn't working. The sneaking around, the careful distance, the way we have to treat each other like colleagues when we both know we're not." She set down her wine, turned to face him. "I don't want to do this anymore." There it was. The ending he'd been expecting since the beginning. Daniel nodded, throat too tight to speak. "So I'm quitting," Sophia continued. Daniel's head snapped up. "What?" "Morrison and Hale. I'm stepping down as CEO. The board will announce it next week." "You can't do that. That company is your life." "No, it was my identity. There's a difference." Sophia's eyes were clear, certain. "I spent 15 years building something I thought would make me happy. But the only time I've actually been happy in the last decade was with you and Emma eating 99-cent cookies in an apartment that leaks." "Sophia, let me finish." She took his hand. "I'm not quitting because of pressure or scandal or anything noble. I'm quitting because I finally figured out what matters. And it's not board meetings or profit margins or being the youngest female CEO in the industry. It's this, us, having the freedom to be together without measuring every word." Daniel's mind was reeling. "What will you do?" "I don't know yet. Maybe consulting. Maybe start something smaller, something I actually care about. Maybe take 6 months and figure out who Sophia Laurent is when she's not performing for shareholders. She smiled. I have enough money to last several lifetimes. What I don't have is enough time to waste it on a life that makes me miserable. You're not miserable. I was. Before you, I absolutely was. I just didn't realize it because I'd convinced myself that success and happiness were the same thing. Sophia squeezed his hand. You taught me they're not. You and Emma, you showed me what actually matters. Daniel thought about Sarah, about the short life they'd had, about promises made at funerals, about Emma asking if her mama would want him to be happy. This is insane, he said. Probably. People are going to think you lost your mind. Let them. Your board, your investors, everyone you've worked with, they'll think I talked you into this, that I'm some kind of gold digger who manipulated you into throwing away your career. Do you care what they think? Daniel considered it. A month ago, he would have cared desperately, would have let public opinion dictate every choice. But something had shifted during the fight with Gregory, a realization that other people's judgments mattered less than his own integrity. No, he admitted, I don't. Good, neither do I. Sophia moved closer. Here's what I know, Daniel. Life is short and mostly unfair. People like us, we don't get fairy tales. We get complicated, messy situations that don't fit into neat categories, but we also get to choose what we fight for. And I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing the possibility that maybe this ridiculous, impossible thing could actually work. And if it doesn't, then at least we tried. At least we were brave enough to risk something that mattered instead of playing it safe and wondering what if. Daniel looked at her, brilliant, powerful, willing to walk away from everything she'd built for a chance at something real. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing he'd ever witnessed. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. That's the dumbest thing you've ever said to me. Sophia's expression softened. You don't earn love, Daniel. You don't deserve it or not deserve it. It just is. And what we have, whatever we're calling it, it just is. We can either accept it or run from it, but we can't logic our way out of it. When did you get so wise? About 3 weeks ago, when I realized I was willing to lose everything except you. They kissed then, finally, after weeks of distance and careful words. It wasn't perfect or smooth. Their teeth clicked. The angle was wrong. They both laughed and tried again. But it was real. Honest. Theirs. When they pulled apart, Daniel was smiling despite the chaos swirling in his head. Emma's going to lose her mind when I tell her, he said. Good loss of mind or bad loss of mind? Good. Definitely good. She's been asking when we're getting married since week 2. Sophia's eyebrows rose. Week 2? Really? She has opinions. Strong ones. Smart kid. The smartest. They sat together while Chicago's lights twinkled below, talking through logistics and fears and possibilities. Sophia's transition out of Morrison and Hale would take 3 months. Daniel would stay on until she left, then decide what came next. Maybe something different. Maybe something that actually used his brain instead of just his hands. I never asked, Sophia said around midnight. What did you want to be? Before Sarah got sick? Before Emma? Before everything got complicated? Daniel thought back to a version of himself that felt like a different person. A teacher, high school English. I wanted to be the guy who made kids care about books when everyone else had given up on them. Why didn't you? Life happened. Sarah got pregnant during senior year, we got married, I dropped out to work full-time. The plan was always that I'd go back, finish my degree, but then she got sick and he trailed off. Plans change. They don't have to stay changed. I'm 32 with no degree and a 7-year-old. Schools aren't exactly lining up to hire me. Online programs exist, night classes. It would take time, but not impossible time. Sophia's eyes lit up with the same focus she brought to business deals. What if that's what you did? Finished your degree? Became that teacher you wanted to be? With what money? What time? Emma needs a father who's fulfilled, not just surviving, and money isn't the barrier anymore. I have enough for both of us, for all of us. She held up her hand before he could protest. Not charity, partnership, investment in our future. You can pay me back in terrible dad jokes and mediocre cooking. Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to insist he could do it himself, maintain his independence, prove he didn't need anyone's help. But that was pride talking, and pride had never kept Emma fed or given him back his dreams. "I'd want to contribute," he said finally, "to the household, to expenses. I'm not looking for someone to take care of me." "I know, but maybe we take care of each other instead. You handle the stuff I'm terrible at, being human, connecting with people, remembering to eat lunch. I handle the stuff you're juggling too much of, money stress, stability, giving you room to become who you're supposed to be." "That doesn't sound equal." "It's not. It's better than equal. It's complementary." Sophia smiled. "Besides, Emma already decided I'm part of the family. I'm just catching up to her conclusion." They talked until 2 a.m., building a future out of possibilities and hope. When Daniel finally left, driving through empty Chicago streets, his mind was spinning with everything that had changed and everything that might. Mrs. Chen was waiting up when he got home, reading on her couch with the door cracked. "Good talk?" she asked. "She's quitting her job, so we can be together without rules." Mrs. Chen smiled. "That's a woman who knows what matters." "It's insane. Love usually is." She stood, stretched. "Your wife, she would like this, Sophia. She would like that you found someone who fights for you." "How do you know?" "Because she married you. That means she knew your value, even when you couldn't see it yourself. This new woman, she knows it too." Mrs. Chen patted his arm. "Let yourself be loved, Daniel. Stop making it so hard." In his apartment, Emma's door was cracked, nightlight casting soft shadows. Daniel checked on her like he did every night, covers adjusted, rabbit repositioned, kiss on her forehead. She stirred but didn't wake. "Love you, sweetheart," he whispered. "Love you too, Papa," she mumbled, half asleep. "Is Sophia your girlfriend now?" Daniel laughed quietly. "Yeah, I think she is." "Good. Took you long enough." The next 3 months were chaos and transition. Sophia's resignation made headlines. Tech CEO steps down at peak of success, and Laurent leaves leadership role citing personal reasons. The business press speculated wildly. Burnout, board conflict, secret illness. No one guessed the truth because the truth sounded too simple. She'd chosen happiness over achievement. Daniel watched her navigate it with grace, fielding calls and questions and concerned investors while steadily disengaging from the empire she'd built. It wasn't easy. Some days she second-guessed everything. Some days she cried from the sheer weight of walking away from her identity. But she never wavered on the core decision. "This is right," she told Daniel during one particularly hard day. "Even when it feels wrong, I know it's right." Morrison and Hale threw her a massive farewell party, the kind with champagne and speeches and people pretending they'd always supported her. Daniel attended as her date, officially, publicly, wearing his wedding suit one last time before Sophia dragged him shopping for something that actually fit. "You deserve clothes that weren't bought for someone else's ceremony," she said, pulling him through stores that made his bank account weep even though she was paying. "This is too much. This is enough. There's a difference." Emma came with them, offering opinions on every shirt and tie with the confidence of someone who'd watched too many makeover shows. "Papa, you can't wear brown shoes with a black belt," she lectured. "Everyone knows that." "Since when do you know that?" "Since forever. It's fashion, Papa. Keep up." Sophia and Emma ganged up on him until he walked out with 3 new suits, shirts that actually fit his shoulders, and shoes that didn't have duct tape holding the soles together. It felt strange and wonderful and slightly wrong, like accepting he was worth the investment. At Morrison and Hale, people noticed. Marcus grinned every time he saw Daniel's new wardrobe. "Look at you, all cleaned up. The fancy lady's influence?" "Something like that." "Good for you, brother. You deserve good things." Daniel was starting to believe it. Sophia's last day at Morrison and Hale was bittersweet. Daniel worked his shift like normal, but at 5 p.m., he found her in her now empty office, staring out at Chicago. "Ready?" he asked. She turned, eyes wet but smiling. "Yeah, I'm ready." They walked out together, Sophia carrying a small box of personal items. The sum total of 15 years compressed into memorabilia. In the lobby, employees had gathered to say goodbye. It was awkward and touching and unnecessary, but Sophia handled it with the same grace she'd brought to everything else. Outside, Daniel's car looked pathetic next to the town car that had been part of her compensation package. "Your chariot awaits," he said, opening the passenger door. Sophia laughed. I've never ridden in a car that needed jumper cables in the trunk. There for emergencies. Shows preparedness. Shows poverty. That too. They drove to pick up Emma from school, Sophia riding in the back seat because the front seat belt was broken and held together with a knot. Emma bounced in, saw Sophia, and shrieked, "You came!" "I'm unemployed now. I can come to school pickup every day if you want." Best day ever. They went to the park, then to dinner at a place Emma chose. A diner with sticky tables and crayons and burgers that tasted like childhood. Sophia fit into their life like she'd always been there, laughing at Emma's jokes and stealing Daniel's fries and looking happier than he'd ever seen her in any boardroom. "This is nice," Emma declared, mouth full of burger. "We should do this every day." "We can't do this every day, sweetheart," Daniel said. "Why not?" Sophia caught his eye across the table. "Actually, we could if you wanted to." "What?" "I've been thinking about living arrangements. My penthouse is paid off, way too big for one person, and has a second bedroom that would be perfect for a 7-year-old who likes dragon books." Emma's eyes went huge. "We'd live with you? If you wanted, if your dad's okay with it." All eyes turned to Daniel. He felt ambushed in the best possible way. "That's a big step," he managed. "It is. But we're already doing this backward anyway. Might as well commit fully." Sophia's expression turned serious. "I'm not trying to rush you. If it's too soon, we can wait. But Emma deserves better than an apartment that leaks, and you deserve to not stress about rent every month. This isn't charity. It's family." Family. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emma grabbed Daniel's hand. "Can we, Papa? Please? I promise I'll keep my room clean and do all my homework and be really good." "You're already good, Em." "That's not the question." "Then what is?" Daniel looked at Sophia, brilliant, brave, offering them a life he'd never imagined possible. Looked at Emma, hopeful, happy, ready to accept good things without overthinking them. Looked at his own fears and pride and realized they were poor reasons to reject something beautiful. "The question is whether I'm brave enough to say yes," he admitted. "Are you?" Sophia asked gently. Daniel thought about Sarah, about the life they'd planned that never happened. Thought about promises made at funerals and Mrs. Chen's words about letting himself be loved. Thought about Emma's question. Would her mama want him to be happy? The answer had always been yes. "Yeah," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Yeah, I'm brave enough." Emma cheered so loud the entire diner turned to look. Sophia's smile was brighter than Chicago's skyline. And Daniel felt something in his chest finally relax. Moving happened gradually over the next month. They kept Daniel's apartment initially, a safety net, a backup plan, a way to ease into cohabitation without burning bridges. But slowly, Emma's clothes migrated to the penthouse. Then her toys, then her books, then Daniel's things followed until the old apartment sat mostly empty, a ghost of the life they were leaving behind. "Feels strange," Daniel said, standing in the empty living room one last time. "We survived here, built a life here." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. "And now you're building a bigger one somewhere else. That's how life works." "I'm gonna miss you. I'm 3 miles away, not dead. You'll visit? Emma will visit? I'll spoil her with cookies and send her home hyper." She smiled. "I'm proud of you, Daniel. Your wife would be too. Thank you for everything. For watching Emma, for the advice, for not judging when I was drowning. We take care of each other. That's what neighbors do." She pressed something into his hand, a photo of Sarah he'd thought was lost. "Found this when you moved the couch. She's beautiful. Keep her close, but don't let her memory stop you from living." Daniel hugged her, this old woman who'd been more family than neighbor, and felt another piece of his old life click into place as memory instead of open wound. At the penthouse, Emma claimed her new room with the enthusiasm of someone who'd never had space before. Sophia had let her choose everything: paint colors, furniture, decorations. It looked like a rainbow exploded, and Emma loved every inch. "Papa, come see." Daniel stood in the doorway of a room bigger than their entire old apartment. Emma was arranging stuffed animals on a bed that looked like a cloud. "It's perfect, sweetheart." "I know!" She bounced on the mattress. "And Sophia says we can get a dog. A real dog, not a stuffed one." She said maybe. "Maybe we can get a dog." "That's basically yes," Sophia appeared, laughing. I said we'd discuss it. Emma hears what she wants to hear. Wonder where she gets that from, Daniel muttered. They settled into routines that felt both foreign and natural. Sophia made terrible coffee that Daniel drank anyway. Daniel cooked dinner most nights, teaching Sophia that food could be simple and still good. Emma dragged them both to school events and park visits and movie nights, delighted to have two adults' attention instead of one exhausted parent's divided focus. It wasn't perfect. They fought about stupid things. Daniel's tendency to leave cabinets open, Sophia's inability to remember that laundry needed to be moved from washer to dryer, whose turn it was to take out the trash. But they also laughed more than Daniel had in years, talked until midnight, built something that felt like a real family instead of survival mode with extra steps. 3 months after moving in, Daniel started classes. Online program, night schedule, working toward the teaching degree he'd abandoned a decade ago. It was hard, balancing homework with Emma's needs and Sophia's schedule and his own job, but it was also the first time in years he'd done something purely for himself, for his future, for the person he wanted to become. "How's it going?" Sophia asked one evening, finding him buried in textbooks at the kitchen table. "I'm the oldest person in every class and definitely the dumbest." "You're not dumb. I'm rusty. There's a difference, but it feels the same." She sat beside him, looked at his essay on Faulkner's narrative structure. "This is good. Really good. It's rough. It's honest. That matters more than polish." She kissed his temple. "I'm proud of you." The words landed soft and unexpected. Daniel looked at her. This woman who'd walked away from everything to be with him, who believed in his potential when he barely believed in himself. "I love you," he said, the words escaping before he could overthink them. Sophia's eyes widened. They'd been dancing around the admission for months, both too scared to say it first. "Yeah?" she asked, voice small. "Yeah, I love you. I have for a while, I just didn't know how to say it without it sounding like I'm grateful or dependent or—" She kissed him quiet. "I love you too. So much it scared me. Still scares me." Good scared or bad scared? Both. The best things are always both. Emma found them like that. Kissing in the kitchen at 9 p.m. on a random Tuesday, surrounded by Faulkner essays and cold coffee. She made an exaggerated gagging sound. "Gross, you're being mushy again." "Get used to it, sweetheart," Daniel said, pulling Emma into the hug. "This is our life now." "I already am used to it. I told Zoe at school that you two are getting married." Sophia laughed. "Did you now?" "Yep. She asked if you're rich, and I said super rich, and then she asked if we have a pool, and I said not yet, but probably soon." "Quite the imagination," Daniel said. "It's not imagination if it's true." Emma looked between them seriously. "You are getting married, right? Because you love each other, and you're a family, and that's what families do." Daniel glanced at Sophia. They talked around the idea, danced near it, but never confronted it directly. "Eventually," Sophia said carefully, "when the time is right." "When's that?" "When we're sure." "You're not sure now?" Out of the mouths of children. Daniel took a breath, decided courage meant jumping even when you weren't certain of the landing. "I'm sure," he said, looking at Sophia. "I've been sure since you showed up at my apartment with cookies and listened to dragon stories like they mattered. I'm sure every morning when I wake up next to you and every night when we put Emma to bed together, I'm sure in the boring moments and the hard ones and everything in between." Sophia's eyes filled. "Daniel, I'm not asking now. I'm just saying, when you're ready, when it feels right, I'm already there. I already chose this. I already chose you." "Me too," Sophia whispered. "I already chose you too." Emma looked triumphant. "See, you're getting married. I told Zoe." 6 months later, on a Saturday that felt like every other Saturday except it wasn't, Daniel took Sophia to the park where he used to push Emma on swings. The same park where they'd eaten ice cream and fed ducks and talked about impossible things. Emma was with Mrs. Chen for the afternoon, part of a carefully orchestrated plan that Daniel had been nervous about for weeks. "Why are we here?" Sophia asked, looking around at the familiar playground. "Because this is where I figured out you were worth the risk," Daniel said. "Where I decided that maybe complicated was better than safe." "That's very romantic, but also vague." Daniel laughed, nervous energy making everything feel sharp-edged. "I've never done this before. With Sarah, we just sort of agreed we were getting married after she got pregnant. No proposal, no moment, just practicality. Sophia's expression softened. Daniel, what are you? He pulled out the ring before he could overthink it. Not expensive by her standards. He'd saved for months from his job, insisted on buying it himself despite Sophia's access to infinity money. Simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the afternoon light. I'm asking you to marry me, he said, hands shaking. I know it's fast by normal standards and weird by rich people's standards. I know I'm still in school and you're figuring out your next career move, and we're both disasters in different ways. But I also know I don't want to do any of it without you. I don't want to teach classrooms full of kids who need someone to believe in them without you there celebrating the small victories. I don't want to raise Emma without you making her laugh and teaching her that strength comes in all forms. I don't want to build a life that doesn't have you at the center of it. Sophia was crying, mascara running, looking more beautiful than any corporate headshot. That's not a question, she managed. Will you marry me? That's better. She laughed through tears. Yes. Obviously, yes. I walked away from a Fortune 500 company for you. Did you think I'd say no to marriage? Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly because he'd stolen one of hers to get the size. They kissed while joggers passed and kids played and Chicago moved around them, indifferent and infinite. Emma's going to be insufferable about being right, Sophia said when they pulled apart. Completely insufferable. Worth it, though. Definitely worth it. They picked up Emma together, and she knew immediately. Saw the ring, saw their faces, and screamed so loud Mrs. Chen came running. You're married! Not yet, Daniel corrected. But we will be. I told you weeks ago. You were very wise, sweetheart. Emma launched herself at both of them, a tangle of arms and joy. Mrs. Chen watched from her doorway, smiling. See? She called to Daniel. Good things happen when you stop making everything so hard. The wedding happened 4 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Marcus stood as Daniel's best man, looking uncomfortable in a rented tux. Emma was flower girl, taking her job so seriously she walked slower than the actual bride. Sophia wore a simple dress that probably still cost a fortune, but looked nothing like the armor she used to wear to boardrooms. Daniel wore one of his new suits and cried during the vows, which Emma later told everyone about with great delight. Papa cried more than Sophia, she announced at the reception. Like a lot. It was very mushy. They honeymooned in Michigan. Nothing exotic, just a lake house rental, and time together without schedules or obligations. Emma came because she'd insisted, and neither Daniel nor Sophia could imagine celebrating without her. This is nice, Sophia said one evening, watching Emma play in the waves while the sun set. Quiet, simple, normal. You miss the other life? Daniel asked. She considered it honestly. Sometimes. I miss the clarity of knowing my purpose, the validation of being good at something difficult. But I don't miss the loneliness, or the constant performance, or caring more about quarterly earnings than actual people. What's next for you, career-wise? I've been thinking about consulting for nonprofits, places that need business expertise but can't afford the big firms. Help them be more efficient so they can help more people. She smiled. Smaller impact than running a tech company, but maybe more meaningful. That sounds perfect for you. We'll see. First, I want to finish unpacking my identity from my job title. Figure out who Sophia Brooks is when she's not CEO of anything. Sophia Brooks. Daniel still wasn't used to the sound of it. I like it, he said. Your new name. Me too. Feels like becoming someone new while staying myself. Emma ran up, dripping and delighted. Papa, Sophia, come swim. The water's perfect. They waded in together, Daniel and Sophia and Emma, and played in the waves until the sun disappeared. Later, after Emma was asleep, they sat on the porch listening to crickets and distant boats. You know what I realized, Daniel said. What? I spent 3 years trying to be enough for Emma on my own, trying to be mom and dad, trying to fill an impossible gap. But I was thinking about it wrong. It wasn't about being enough. It was about being honest, about showing her that life breaks people sometimes, and that's okay. That you can lose everything and still rebuild. That asking for help isn't weakness. That love doesn't replace what you lost, but it makes room for something new. Sophia took his hand. You think Sarah would approve of us? Daniel thought about his wife. young and bright and gone too soon, about the life they'd planned that never happened, about promises and grief and the way love transformed but didn't disappear. "Yeah," he said, "I think she'd like you. I think she'd like that Emma has someone else teaching her to be strong. I think she'd want me to be happy." "Are you happy?" Daniel looked at the lake, at the house where his daughter slept safe and loved, at the woman beside him who'd risked everything for a chance at real. "Yeah," he said, "I really am." A year later, Daniel stood in front of his first classroom, 11th grade English in a Chicago public school that needed teachers who cared more than they needed experienced ones. The kids looked at him with the universal skepticism of teenagers facing another adult who'd probably let them down. "My name is Mr. Brooks," he started, "and I'm going to tell you something most teachers won't. I don't know everything. I'm going to make mistakes. Some lessons will be terrible, and we'll all suffer through them together. But I promise you this, I will show up. I will care. I will believe you're worth the effort, even when you don't believe it yourself." One kid in the back snorted. "That's what they all say." "Maybe. But I'm the one who actually means it. Ask me again in 6 months if I'm still here." They were skeptical. Daniel didn't blame them. But over weeks and months he showed up, learned their names, their stories, the barriers keeping them from caring about Faulkner or Fitzgerald or any dead white guy's opinion on life. Found ways to make literature relevant, to connect words on pages to lives they were actually living. Some kids bloomed, some stayed closed. Daniel learned to measure success in small moments. The student who finally turned in an essay, the one who stopped skipping class, the one who admitted that maybe books weren't completely stupid. "How's teaching?" Sophia asked one evening, watching him grade papers at the kitchen table. "Exhausting, rewarding, impossible, perfect. So like everything worthwhile." Exactly like everything worthwhile. Emma, now 8, and opinionated about everything, looked up from her homework. "Papa's students like him. Zoe's cousin has him for English, and she says he's the nice teacher who actually cares." "High praise from a teenager," Sophia said. "The highest," Daniel agreed. Life settled into patterns that felt earned rather than fallen into. Daniel taught and came home exhausted but fulfilled. Sophia built her consulting practice, helping organizations do more good with less waste. Emma thrived in her new school, made friends, brought home grades that suggested she'd inherited both her parents' brains. They got the dog, a mutt from the shelter that Emma named Dragon and who destroyed 2 pairs of shoes before learning basic manners. They hosted dinners where Marcus and Mrs. Chen came over and told embarrassing stories. They fought about dumb things and forgave quickly and built a life that looked nothing like either of them had imagined. On their 2nd anniversary, Sophia surprised Daniel with a gift, the deed to his old apartment building. "What is this?" he asked, staring at the papers. "I bought the building. Well, my investment fund bought it, but I'm deeding it to a nonprofit that will maintain it as affordable housing for single parents." She smiled. "Mrs. Chen gets to stay as long as she wants. Other families like yours get a safe place that won't bankrupt them. And you don't have to feel guilty about leaving it behind." Daniel couldn't speak, just held her while something in his chest finally, completely healed. "You didn't have to do this," he managed eventually. "I wanted to. You showed me what actually matters. This is me passing that forward." 5 years after that night in the restaurant, Daniel stood at Emma's middle school graduation, watching his daughter accept an award for academic excellence. Sophia sat beside him, squeezing his hand when Emma's name was called. "That's our girl," Sophia whispered. "Our girl. Not your daughter or my stepdaughter, but ours." The blended family they'd built through courage and stubbornness, and refusing to accept that different worlds couldn't intersect. After the ceremony, Emma ran to them, medal swinging. "Did you see? I won." "We saw, sweetheart. We're so proud." Daniel hugged her tight. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" "Obviously." They went to the same diner where Daniel had proposed, where they'd eaten countless meals, where the waitress knew their order by heart. Emma talked nonstop about summer plans in 8th grade and 1,000 teenage concerns. Daniel and Sophia listened, contributed, marveled at the person she was becoming. "You know what's weird?" Emma said between bites of chocolate shake. "I barely remember when it was just me and Papa. Like, I know it happened, and I know it was hard, but it feels like you've always been here, Sophia. Is that good weird or bad weird? Sophia asked. Good weird, the best weird. Emma smiled. You're my mom, not my birth mom, but my real mom. The one who shows up and cares and makes Papa happy. Sophia's eyes filled. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. It's true. Plus, you're way better at math homework than Papa. Hey, Daniel protested. I'm good at math. You're okay at math. Sophia's good at math. They laughed, and Daniel felt the kind of happiness that came from building something brick by brick instead of finding it ready-made. The kind that survived bad days and hard moments because the foundation was honest. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel and Sophia sat on their balcony overlooking Chicago. The same city that had witnessed their impossible beginning, now holding their improbable present. Do you ever think about how we almost didn't happen? Daniel asked. How many times we could have walked away? All the time. Every bad choice I could have made that would have meant never meeting you. Like not going to that dinner with Gregory, or you deciding the woman crying in the elevator wasn't your problem, or you not offering me the arrangement, or you taking Gregory's money and disappearing. They sat with the weight of alternate timelines, all the versions of their lives that could have been and weren't. I'm glad we chose brave, Sophia said finally. Even when it was stupid? Especially when it was stupid. The smart choice would have been to stay in our separate lanes, but the right choice was to believe something impossible might actually work. Daniel pulled her closer. You know what I tell my students, the ones who are scared to try because they might fail? What? That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the thing anyway because it matters more than the fear. And that the best stories, the ones worth telling, they're never about people who played it safe. That's good advice. I learned it from someone who walked away from a Fortune 500 company for a janitor with a kid and a mountain of debt. That janitor turned out to be a pretty good investment. Yeah? The best one I ever made. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their city breathe. Somewhere below, someone was having their worst day. Someone was falling in love. Someone was making a choice that would change everything. The machinery of life grinding forward, indifferent and beautiful and impossibly complex. Daniel thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago. Exhausted, hopeless, surviving one day at a time with no vision beyond Emma's next meal. Thought about Sophia as she'd been, powerful and lonely, convinced that success and happiness were the same thing. Thought about the collision that had brought them together and the courage it took to stay together. Hey, he said softly. Hey, Sophia replied. Thank you for seeing something worth fighting for when I couldn't see it myself. Thank you for being brave enough to let me fight. Inside, Emma called out in her sleep, something about dragons and homework. They both smiled, recognizing the sound of their daughter dreaming. Should we check on her? Sophia asked. Nah, she's fine, just processing her day. Like someone else I know. Wonder where she gets it from. They stayed on the balcony a while longer, two people who'd started in impossible places and somehow, against every odd, found their way to each other. Not because it was easy, not because it made sense, but because sometimes the smallest choices, to help a stranger, to take a risk, to choose love over logic, they mattered more than anyone could predict. And in the end, that's what life was. A series of small choices that added up to everything. The choice to intervene when you could have walked past. The choice to stay when leaving would have been simpler. The choice to believe that maybe, just maybe, impossible things could happen if you were brave enough to try. Daniel Brooks had learned that lesson in a restaurant on a random evening when he chose to help someone who needed it. Sophia Laurent had learned it in an elevator when she chose to be honest with a stranger. Together, they'd built something that started as impossible and became inevitable. And that, Daniel thought, watching Chicago's infinite lights with his wife beside him and his daughter safe inside, was the only story worth telling. Not perfect, not simple, but real. Honest. Theirs. The best things always were.